Big 12 Today with Ari and James. Monday through Friday, 8A to 11A Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
And away we go on a Tuesday. Happiness is a choice. Thank you for choosing us. Happiness is being back in this chair with you. What's up, James? How are you?
Man, it feels weird. He's back.
Why does it feel weird?
You've been gone for so long. I was in that seat. I was so flustered. We had building issues. We had situations arise. But let's not bury the lead here. Ratings were through the roof.
Everybody said the same thing. Overwhelmingly, the show is better.
Oh, man. Just really shined. We've had some studio upgrades since you've been gone.
I see. There's a lot of dirt on my side of the studio.
Yeah, we did
today.
a little mutton busting.
Some excavating? Is that what you did?
Yeah, that too.
Did you do some excavating in here? Yeah. Looks good.
Man, you've got a nice, summer tan going on. How was the trip?
It was great. I don't know that it's a little bit chillier in Maine, so I don't know that it would be like a Maine tan.
I think it would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to say no. I'm going to go ahead and say it.
Probably closer to the sun.
Definitely for that. No, it was a great trip. Great reset. I was gone for a week, so not that long. Only a few days missed. And I worked basically nonstop while I was gone, sending you my Road to Arlington series, except for yesterday. So you had me busy at work while I was taking my time off.
Everybody, YouTube comments, the Reddit threads, where's Ari? You guys we need updates. Taman's we got to send him a text. My kids are asking, where's Ari? I said, no, guys. I said, leave him alone. Let him enjoy his vacation. Give him a week.
Yeah.
Hard reset button, which is always the best.
Yeah, of course. And you've got one of those on Friday?
Yeah, it's not
a hard reset, just kind of a soft reset?
It's a soft launch in the vacation season.
Got it.
A little weekend trip, but
nice.
Yeah, so I'll be out Friday. T-Chains will do a fantastic job, as he did all week. He had a producer compound over here in this seat. He had multiple tables and mixing boards, and he's like a DJ in real time. Mid-sentence. It was quite impressive.
Yeah, the thing that I didn't realize about Maine, and there's a lot of things I didn't realize about Maine, because before going to Maine, I didn't really know anything about Maine other than it's pretty. But the historical context, I did not really realize. There's a lighthouse in Portland. It is the first commissioned lighthouse by George Washington in the 1700s. Lots of things in Maine go back to the 1700s. And, even then, there's still bunkers built out for the Civil War as a part of Maine's lore. So just a lot of stuff from the histrionics part of it that I had no context with. It's an absolutely beautiful state. Stunning, actually. You've got we spent we were in 3 different cities in Maine, and what is surprising to me beyond the history of Maine is that each of these cities was completely different. Driving up the coast, totally different vibe, totally different feel of each of the cities. Ended up in Acadia National Park in Bar Harbor, Maine, which is just stunning. Again, you've got the woods and just these huge old trees on one side, and then cliffs and the ocean on the other side. It was a good trip, good times.
I've never heard somebody say I went to Maine and it was mid. Right?
Yeah.
Meh.
No, yeah.
Super underrated state. I've got family that lives in Portland, but I haven't been since I was 14 or 15 years old. And I've been to that lighthouse, but did not know the historical context.
Yeah.
Because when you're 14.
Built in the 1700s. It was the first ever commissioned lighthouse in the United States.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Plus, days are really long there this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Sun rises at 4:45 in the morning and sets at 9 o'clock at night. It's 15 hours of daylight.
Yeah, they're way up there. That's amazing. When I think about the most underrated states in America, Maine tops the list. Number 2 would probably be Idaho. Very underrated. I've never been, but I've heard it's beautiful. But Maine is a sleeper pick.
So anyways, we're moving to Maine. I mean, you could not have 2 more different places than Dallas, Texas, and anywhere Maine.
Yeah. It's very accurate. For a lot of reasons.
Just a different world.
How are the people?
Super nice.
Yeah.
Super nice and
Chill.
friendly. Yes.
They're like, we live in Maine. What's there to be upset about?
Yes. Just the pace of life is so much slower.
Mm-hmm.
It's refreshing.
Yeah.
Food is incredible. I'm gonna not eat for a week now. I probably gained about 45 to 50
I was
pounds.
going to say 56, but yeah, that sounds about right.
So I got to get back into the gym and get back in and everything. Did anything happen while I was gone, by the way? Anything news-wise go over the last 24 to 48 hours? I took a week off, and this week had been planned for a long time. But, man, did I come back at a fortuitous time.
Yeah, no, I'd say it was a pretty light week. Nothing yesterday so the Sorsby news broke yesterday during our last 15-minute segment.
Oh, Sorsby news. There was Sorsby news to talk about?
Brendan Sorsby. Rhymes with Roarsby with an S. Sorsby is his name.
Rhymes with Lorsby.
But it was wild to, see that break, and we had our initial reaction, but the college football Twitter firestorm that followed didn't hit until well after we left the studio and the show. But, man, the last 22 hours have just been insane.
Yeah,
and then Taman was convinced you actually weren't in Maine. He thought you were in Lawrence at the Supers watching KU in Oklahoma, that your first-class ticket upgrade was actually a StubHub purchase. Ticketmaster, I should say. SeatGeek.
One of the three?
One of the three. I was trying to remember which one was the official Big 12
I was
partner.
not in Lawrence. I think I sent you guys a video yesterday when I was at the national park.
Yeah, it looked fake. I thought it was AI. I said, he's sitting right behind home plate holding a chicken. They hold raccoons in Morgantown.
Boy,
in
it's
Kansas.
a good thing I didn't go to Lawrence. But on this front, did I jinx my team? So I bought. I got a hotel in Omaha.
Oh no. Yes.
I jinxed the Jayhawks.
Yes, you jinxed them.
Well, how else was I supposed to be prepared for a trip to Omaha? You can't wait till your team punches their ticket, then you're too late.
Prices skyrocket.
Skyrocket. I got a good deal on a hotel room.
I bet you did.
Downtown, right across the street from the ballpark.
Oh, Omaha's a very underrated city. I'm all about underrated communities, apparently, today.
Maine,
Idaho, and Omaha.
Oh, three of the most underrated places on earth.
I mean, where else would you go? Yeah, I mean, I've done that one time.
And you jinxed it?
In the NCAA tournament. Kansas State beat Xavier. They went to the Elite Eight. They were playing a 5-seed Butler. I thought, Poland, Clemente, Curtis Kelly, did you watch the Sweet 16? This is a lock. Gordon Hayward had other thoughts.
Yeah, you're like, who's ever heard of this Butler team? Loser coach. No way they make it through.
Brad who? So, yeah. I mean, yeah, you maybe jinxed him a little bit.
You kind of backed away from the you were like full in on you jinxed it, and then you were kind of like you kind of soft launched it, like you dipped your toe in the water there, like you might have played a role.
Like, when did you start to retreat? Is my question. Was it during the rain delay after what was that Saturday or Sunday?
We can confidently say before the rain delay.
It was before the rain delay. You're like, okay.
8-1. They had been outscored pretty convincingly over the first couple of days.
Oklahoma puts a freshman on the mound with an ERA over 5, and he's just nails. Turns into Randy Johnson out there.
Cord Rager.
What a name.
I don't know if I should be impressed or confused by the name. All right, well, plenty to break down at today's show. Of course, are entering the final stages of our Road to Arlington series. We're talking BYU football today and their road to Arlington. The two teams we're focused in on for the next 2 days are the two teams that played in Arlington last year, so we'll see if they can get back to Arlington. We start a new football series tomorrow. We're like a month away from Media Days. Media Days is going to be absolutely insanely wild. Conferences are reacting, and in the next segment, of course, we're going to dive deep into the Sorsby stuff with the latest news, the injunction being granted yesterday. And James, I've been saying this for quite some time. You know that I said it because in our previews throughout, I've been saying I think Sorsby's going to get eligible. The other thing is, I'm not sure and I'm not convinced that Sorsby and or Texas Tech had any idea of the type of firestorm that would envelop them when this news came down, and I'm still not convinced that they are adequately prepared, and I'm not sure that anybody could possibly be adequately prepared for the firestorm that has descended upon Lubbock, and not just from the media, but the way the Big Ten and the SEC are reacting. Brett Yormark releases a statement. There's statements from named and unnamed athletic directors and administrators in the Big 12 there's a lot of noise around Brendan Sorsby and Texas Tech right now related to this injunction.
Yeah, like my biggest shock factor reaction thing is that this has fractured the sport and sports as we know it. This is maybe the biggest NCAA case of all time. I think it's bigger than the Alston case. I think it rivals the O'Bannon case. But back then in the 90s, nobody had access. There wasn't social media. There wasn't this digital world that we live in. So magnitude-wise, it might top them all. And when it's all said and done, I think it will be the most impactful one single individual case in the history of college athletics. And there's nobody that has a bigger challenge ahead of them than the commissioner of this conference, Brett Yormark, because for him it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type scenario. Does he support Texas Tech, which kind of goes against everything he's been supportive of when it comes to the integrity of the sport? And then the other thing is we haven't seen the Big 12 divided like this. Maybe ever. All 16 member institutions signed the CSC, the only conference where every member signs on the dotted line. And now, within this league itself, the league is very much divided. So how he has to manage that and balance all of that, if he goes with Texas Tech, he's supporting his member institution, but it goes against the grand overall arching narrative of cleaning up the sport. But if he throws Texas Tech under the bus, then he's shunning one of his own. Like, there's no win-win.
We'll dive deeper into this and just all of the implications of the Sorsby injunction landing on the way next. With James Westling, I'm Ari Temkin. Have your social media comments pour in, whether it's on YouTube as part of Big 12 Studios. Go to big12studios.com to find all the platforms in which you can watch the show, or on social at Ari Sports, ARI Sports, or at James Wesley. We are off and rolling on a Tuesday with the Sorsby news. I'm Ari Temkin along with James Westling. This is Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, and watch it on Big 12 Studios.
Jackson's in trouble now. David Bailey, he is a sack machine. Third and 8.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, along with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. Yesterday, we found out that an injunction was officially granted for Brennan Sorsby. This should come as a surprise to nobody, given not just the history of Jeffrey Kessler in fights against the NCAA, but in recent history with the courts and the NCAA. This has created a firestorm from a lot of people, I guess, that are surprised by this ruling. I'm not, never was. Have talked to a lot of people that were going to be surprised and have since found out that they're surprised by this ruling.
Right.
But the reaction has been swift. It has been overwhelming. There's a lot of pro-clutching. I get it. Anytime you're talking about the word gambling in sports, there's a very uneasy feeling that permits. It is sort of amazing to me that nobody can create this important distinction here between sports wagering in 2026 and sports wagering in literally any other era of the world, considering just the access in 2026 to wagering. I landed in Maine and immediately was inundated with ads to download apps and start placing wagers immediately. It's a different world. This is not the Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson era of sports wagering with cronies and mafia involvement. This is a totally different animal. I understand, again, the unease with people and just the word association. But again, it's just a completely different era, one. And two, I guess I'm sort of at odds with the idea here that this one is totally different than any other thing that's happened within the NCAA over the last, I don't know, however many 100 years.
You're at odds in that you think this is different, or you see a lot of parallels?
Yes.
Both things can be true.
Yeah, the SEC has had 3 different schools in the last calendar year sue for an injunction to let a player play. So the distinction here is that this guy once gambled on his own team, and that's the difference here. This is why you've got the Big Ten and the SEC threatening to come together to never play Texas Tech in any other sport ever again. Mm-hmm. I mean, Diego Pavia should not have been ruled eligible based on the standards of NCAA rules, but the distinction there is that he was just fighting for eligibility and extra eligibility, whereas this is a gambling thing.
Right.
But in my estimation, they all equal this player should not be playing.
Mm-hmm. So why did everybody seem to assume that this would not be granted when the NCAA is
because it's
taking
gambling.
L after L after L?
Because it's gambling.
Exactly. And violations can be subjective, but to me, this could be the fracture that leads to reform. Is this a potential turning point in college athletics as we know it? How we get there, whether it's collective bargaining, whether it's this Protect College Sports bill, remains to be seen. But every institution, every athletic director, every coach, commissioner has been vocal about the fact that college sports and the system is broken. Is this finally the moment that leads to a hard 1,000% effort to fix it?
Yeah, I mean, I think of all of the potential positives that could come from this, a collective bargaining agreement might be at the top.
Yep.
But yet, despite that, I haven't really heard any from schools or from the NCAA basically allude to that. I have heard thoughts about the Protect College Sports Act, which, by the way, if you have not been paying attention, will be most likely dead on arrival, as most of these other bills have been. I mean, for years, we've seen 40 bills come through, and none of them have made it past committee. And on top of that, this was not an antitrust suit. This was not an antitrust, the ruling here had nothing to do with antitrust, which means that this ruling would have been the same even with the Protect College Sports bill passed, which, by the way, is a far cry from the reality of the situation in terms of a bill passage.
Yeah.
So we're far away from any bill passing. Even the bill that's in the House right now would not have addressed this specific situation. And on top of everything, you're continually waiting for a lifeline that is not coming. You can beg and plead and try to get the federal government to implement these things, it's not going to happen. The only way you get out of this is through a collective bargaining agreement. So if this serves as the impetus for that, then that's a good thing.
Totally. And Charlie Baker, who's the president of the NCAA, he had a quote that this is the ultimate tipping point for federal intervention. So now he's being more outspoken about aggressively pushing for the Protect College Sports Act and getting some type of clarity and reform coming from Congress. But the wording of the judge's reasoning for granting this temporary injunction was interesting to me, because I think the outcry and the backlash goes in the face of that. So he doesn't have to reveal, if you will, his exact reasoning unless requested, which I'm sure it will be. But initially, in the court document, it said that, playing football or not playing football would be detrimental to the mental health, essentially, of Brendan Sorsby. Well, what is playing in front of 70, 80, 90,000 seat capacity stadiums and being the most hated player in college football going to do for his mental health? That is the part where I see some hypocrisy, but I also see a lot of hypocrisy from the NCAA with benefiting from supplying sports books data, making millions of dollars from that information. So I've said, my stance on this deviated from my original take, which was he should be done, when I looked at the hypocrisy from the NCAA. But only a 2-game suspension, and Texas Tech basically getting everything that they wanted, was also surprising to me. Like, 2 games is a pennies in a bucket. Like Abilene Christian and Oregon State, he'll be back for the Houston game. So the suspension itself is very minimal, and I think that has also piled on to the narrative where basically he's not being penalized in any way. He only has to sit out those 2 game days, right? He can practice all week long. He can practice now. He can be in film studies. He can do everything else. He just cannot play on those given Saturdays.
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing that a judge handed down a suspension in the NCAA, but shows basically how much the NCAA is not in control here.
Oh.
So let's back the truck up here, because there's so many angles to get at this with. What is your opinion on this situation? Should Sorsby be allowed to play? Are you outraged by this?
No, I think he should be allowed to play. With that said, a 2-game suspension is not enough to me, because I look at it as he violated company policy in a big way. We're not talking about a $10 bet like a former Iowa football player made on an Iowa women's basketball game, submitted it to the NCAA, and didn't play again the rest of his career. We're talking about $90,000 as of now. And remember, there's still a federal investigation taking place. Like, there could be more that is uncovered, if you will, or discovered throughout this process. But as it stands right now, transferring $60,000 to family members, that is a major violation of company policy. So that, to me...
Yeah, but is this a different violation of company policy than any of the others? Because to me, the hypocrisy points to, the SEC basically saying, as we've discussed, this College Sports Commission that we all agreed to and paid for, we don't agree with it anymore and don't want to abide by it, right? So the rules of engagement say you can only spend this X amount of dollars on players, but other schools are spending much more, including schools that are complaining about this. Am I wrong in finding that equivalency here?
No, it just magnifies the fact that there are no rules. There are no rules in college athletics. You can do whatever you want, and if you have the pockets deep enough to get it in front of a judge, you're going to win, because the NCAA continues to take loss after loss.
So why are people surprised by this, James? Because that was true before this injunction was handed down, and it's as true the day after.
I think you said it best. One word: gambling. Gambling. Gambling on your own team. He's got former teammates coming out and saying that he placed a prop bet on an under of a teammate. Like, that'll all come out down the road in court, right? That will be, if that is true, which that's pure speculation. There's no actual hard data or facts or uncovered evidence that has been released that would indicate that. But I think it's just the fact that it is the one thing that violates the integrity of the sport. Gambling. Like, I think Charlie Baker, his hard stance on gambling, I like it. Like, some of the things that these players are going through behind the scenes in terms of pressure from sports bettors and guys that are very heavily invested, the underground sports betting world, if you will, is a very serious matter, and the NCAA is doing a really good job behind the scenes of trying to crack down on that. But if it was anything else, if it was eligibility, there would be zero reaction.
Yeah.
Minimal reaction.
Well, and that's it, right? I mean, I posed this question on social media, and that is, LSU and Indiana were after Sorsby. According to Chris Hummer, he was the most sought-after player in the portal.
Even tampering. Everybody just turns a blind eye.
What happens if he's at LSU? What happens if he goes to LSU? What happens if he goes to Indiana? What happens if he goes somewhere else? Would this have been the same way that this would go down? I would presumably say yes. All these other coaches and programs are facing the same exact pressure to win at the highest level. For me, this comes down to a few different things. Number one, the idea here that, like, this is the same as Pete Rose gambling is so inaccurate to me, based just, again, on how intertwined college sports is with gambling. And you brought this up, and I applaud you for doing so. Like, the NCAA sells its data to sports books.
To a company that takes that data, wraps it up in a nice gift box with a bow, and gives it to DraftKings, FanDuel, Bet MGM, or whatever it is.
Sure, yeah. No, I mean, and so it comes down to two things. One, like, breaking rules is breaking rules. And so the SEC wants to break its own rules, but then when somebody else does it, they're upset. But I get it. The distinction there is, well, this is a gambling rule. It's totally different than eligibility or anything else, or going above the cap. But you could argue that, like, these are all rules that are in place to help, quote unquote, level the playing field. I mean, you've got Georgia's athletic director, Josh Brooks, saying some of the most contradictory things within 2 weeks of each other.
Yeah.
Basically saying, like, we don't need the NCAA to govern us. Well, then 2 weeks later, turning around and being like, we need some semblance of governance from somebody that will create uniformity across the board. Like, but what? But you just said we didn't need this. How can both of those things be true?
Can't. The hypocrisy on so many different levels is what blows my mind.
That's the part that I just can't get over.
And Georgia's saying that they're not going to play Texas Tech. The SEC holding a conference call. The Big 12 is going to have one later this week. Like, Georgia being the spokesperson for what is right and wrong in college athletics
is hilarious.
When you've had a dozen players arrested in the last 12 months, that doesn't check out for me. That does not make sense.
Well, and when you're clearly paying above the cap, there's an agreed upon level that you're allowed to pay until. That is, you go over the cap to pay players, and you're having deals that are not going through the College Sports Commission. That is, in essence, against the rules. That is compromising the integrity of the competition. Rules are rules. They're broken. They're broken. But we've created this false equivalency of, well, this is a different rule. In 2026, it's not. How do we not acknowledge that the ways in which the sports wagering and sports betting is so intertwined with college sports? This ain't Pete Rose.
No, it's not Pete Rose. It's a unique case because there have been a lot of sports betting cases, instances, more so in the last 5 or 10 years than ever before. Pete Rose is kind of the grandfather of sports betting, right? But you look at the FBI probe into college basketball. You look at the Arizona State case back in the 90s. But I think what makes this one so unique is that it's the first that we've seen in this digital, easy-to-access world that we live in now. And I'm so glad you brought up the fact that you get off your flight in Maine and you're peppered with sports betting, sports books, and ads trying to get you to place bets in a where it is legal state. That's the other thing. Every state has their own rules and regulations, which makes it very complicated. But the court order referencing Brendan Sorsby's anxiety disorder, if you will, like what is a judge going to think when Brendan Sorsby runs onto the field in Ames or Morgantown or Fort Worth in front of 60,000 people who have read every headline, every tweet, What does playing in these type of hostile road environments pre-court case, as a player who admitted to betting on his own team and his own teammates, what's that going to do for his mental health? Like, he's going to be the most vilified player in college football. What is that going to do for his anxiety disorder? That's like the fourth hypocritical topic that we've addressed during this segment.
Yeah, there's hypocrisy on every side. There's no doubt about it. The Commissioner, Brett Yormark, released a statement last night. The ramifications of today's ruling are significant. It could have broad impact across college athletics, creating great concern amongst our membership. I've been consulting with our key stakeholders and have scheduled a meeting with our conference ADs and our executive board this week. We're also in touch with Charlie Baker and anticipate the NCAA to appeal the order in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll continue to monitor and evaluate the situation. So he released a statement. Doesn't really say much.
Right. And I think that is a 10 out of 10 statement because it's very careful. It's very deliberate. He doesn't condemn Texas Tech. He doesn't defend Texas Tech either. It's a wait-and-see approach. That is a PR masterclass.
It just continues to befuddle me what people don't understand about the NCAA and rules. The NCAA, it's been proven time and time again, cannot create rules to govern the sport.
There are no rules.
There are no rules. And yet it's amazing to me how alarmed and confused people are about this.
And at some point,
we've been saying this for years now. The NCAA has no power. They're not governing anything. They're not doing anything.
When's the last time, has it ever happened, that the NCAA won a case in court?
Pre-Supreme Court ruling, I'd imagine.
So
I mean, they've had a few, wins here or there. They got a 2-game suspension out of this. That's a win.
So the shock comes from the fact that it's betting, that it's gambling.
The shock and reaction. People are extremely emotional about this. Why? Because they're questioning the integrity of the games. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. But college sports needs a moment like this, if anything's actually going to get done. And so I think this could be a blessing in disguise because it could finally push for some type of college sports reform that everybody's unified on. And even if everybody's not unified on, just something hard set in stone to where there are actually rules, whatever those rules are. Let's have some rules. Let's have some boundaries. You don't play the game of football without end zones and sidelines. College sports needs those white lines.
Well, and it needs a collective bargaining agreement, and if it pushes towards that, then it will all be for positive. But so far, we still haven't heard anything about that yet come out of this, and I'm not really sure what the impetus for it will be, but eventually that's the only way and path forward. It's never been more obvious. It's been obvious, but has never become more obvious than right now. The only way to fix and save college sports is through a collective bargaining agreement. There is no congressional action. There's no bill. There's nothing that will pass that will allow for rules to be created and enforced unless there is some kind of contract law collective bargaining agreement. It's been obvious for quite some time now, and it's even more obvious today.
What has to happen for that to happen? Is there anybody that can force a collective bargaining agreement or those conversations to take place?
No. I mean, pressure can be applied, but this should be so obvious to everybody across all of college sports right now. You're not going to get a bill to pass. There's no congressional bill legislation. It's been years now. They haven't even gotten a bill out of committee yet.
Right.
It's a joke. And by the way, collective bargaining would not be great for the athletes. I'll continue to say that. They've got a great situation right now. It's uncapped. They don't have enforceable contracts. I mean, my goodness. People were less outraged by the lack of enforceable contract than anything else when it comes to Sorsby or anybody else that's broken contracts. In this world, there are contracts that are being signed over multiple years and then being broken, and nobody's outraged by that. Nobody's outraged by the fact that players have extra years of eligibility at this point, have basically unlimited eligibility. Nobody's that outraged by any of this stuff. Nobody said anything with Trinidad Chambliss or with Diego Pavia or with many of the other injunctions that have been filed. Nobody said anything. This is the one, though. This is the one that's just the absolute. It's going to take down the NCAA. Give me a break.
I mean, as I was walking out the door yesterday, because we learned of this ruling with about 10 minutes left in our program. So we were reacting in real time. As I'm walking down the hallway to leave, I'm trying to digest this. And I just thought, 10-year-old James, fast forward 30 years, would be stunned to learn that this is what college athletics has turned into. Players getting paid. Eligibility rules basically non-existent. Basketball teams full of international pros. Players betting on their own team and still playing. Or just players betting on their own team, period, full stop. The evolution of college sports in the last decade, I said 3, but even in the last decade, is like it's never been before.
Well, and it if we're being honest, has been wild and out of control for a long time now. It's just that the ways in which it's wild and out of control have been adjusted. Meaning, it used to be wild and out of control for the players, right? They would get cut from rosters or told that they did not have a scholarship available. I mean, coaches were doing that, right? Your scholarship is 1 year renewable every year. So coaches had all of the power, and coaches did all of the things. And the growth of the sport is very much attributable to the players that played and built it. But they weren't getting paid. The compensation they received continually stayed static. The compensation was a scholarship. Despite insane revenue growth for the sport over the last 5, 6, 7 decades, right? So it was crazy and out of control. It just wasn't obvious because the people who were in control and in charge didn't think it was crazy and out of control. But now that they do, we know how crazy and out of control it is because it's been flipped. The dynamic has been completely flipped. It went from the administrators and the coaches having all the control to having none of the control. I'm not saying it's in a better place. I'm simply saying it's as out of control and crazy as it was previously. It's just the people in control were in control, and they're no longer in control anymore. So now it's complete chaos.
Because the group that was the most powerless
is now the most powerful.
Now has the most power. The players, the athletes, the guys that strap up that helmet each and every Saturday.
It's Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo. Plenty more to come on this. This is Big 12 Today with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin.
And it's going to be
We're here at Big 12 Spring Meetings, the Omni PGA in Frisco on Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo with Dave Aranda, the Baylor football coach. How are you, Coach?
Doing great.
You just mentioned, for up to you, you'd watch football, you'd read. What was the third thing you said?
I'd watch boxing. Yeah,
Boxing.
I'd watch whatever's on boxing. When I was growing up, I'd watch it with my dad and my grandfather. And then boxing matches used to be free, used to be just on Saturday, and then it got to pay-per-view, and we would pay it because you got to watch Mike Tyson. But now it's like it's on an app, and but I'll watch it and stream it up or put it up on the TV. And once I do that, I clear the rest of my family. They'll all leave, so it'll just be me. But sometimes I have to make that choice so I can watch my fights. So.
Who do you like? Anybody you like in particular right now?
Geez, Davis, Gervonta Davis, I watch a lot. Let's see, the Mexican monster Benavidez, so impressive. Growing up, it would be always the fighters that were the body punchers, the guys that could take a punch, the pressure fighters. Those were always the ones that just have a lot of respect for, just the hellfire they have to go through to kind of wear people down and to win it in late rounds. I think there's so much comparable to really good football teams. You want to be a pressure fighter.
You beat me to it. I was going to ask you what you take from boxing into football.
That's totally it.
And the first thing I think it would be offensive, defensive line, just the hand fighting.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well,
translatable. And I think your point is extremely well stated.
Yeah, I think you have to always keep coming, and you have to throw punches, and you have to be able to not give up any ground, and you suffocate the opponent into where they eventually wear down and tap out, and then you close the deal on them. The hands that are up will come down, with the body punches and everything else, and then you take your shot. And there's David Benavidez, he's that type of fighter. So when you watch his fights, it's very much that way. And so there's a lot. And I'll show clips of guys like that. A lot of the old school fighters, for sure, Roberto Duran and so on and so forth. Julio Cesar Chavez, there's a lot of that. And so I try to take that. I grew up around boxing with my family, my dad, and everything, and so never did any of it, but was always such a big fan of it, and so still stays with me today.
What about reading? What are you reading right now, or what's the latest thing you read?
Let's see. A book here just recently is The Generosity of Scars. It's written by it's about owning your story. And really being able to tell your story, and there's a lot of work that's got to go in through. There's a vulnerability, and then there is a kind of an art and a science to kind of speaking out loud. That's been something that I've kind of sucked at. And so I think to really try to spend time on it and improve on it. It's written by I forget his name. It's an army. He was in the army, and so it really talks about just going through whatever traumas you've gone through, kind of owning it, and then using it as a way to connect. And so, beautiful book. I've read it now twice here, just this last month.
You don't suck at public speaking.
I appreciate that.
I mean, I think you just have a different approach to it, but you're genuine and honest, and like that's worth a lot.
No,
relative to how you orate,
Yeah.
Just being honest and because there's people that like are bad orators, but they're also not genuine or honest,
Yeah.
So you just got to give yourself some credit.
No, appreciate that.
And I also just give yourself a little more credit. You don't suck at it, especially because you're working on it, and that's most important too. That you feel like you need to work on it, and that way, therefore, you don't suck at anything you're trying to work on. That's something I'm trying to work on with my kids, because they don't do something right immediately, they suck at it. It's like, no, if you think you suck at it, then you suck at it.
That's
you have to take a better attitude.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
I know.
That's
it's
hard
way
to do.
easier to tell people than it is to do it yourself.
That's right.
As most things are in life. All right, let's talk about your football team, because I could sit here and talk literature with you for hours. How do you get better on the defensive side of the football?
Yeah, we have to pay more money to the players on that side of the ball. And so that was a big thing in the very beginning, December, January, was that we have to pay more money there. And I think I take the ownership of it. I think when I was there, I didn't spend enough money on that side of the ball. And being a head coach and being the coordinator at that time, it I could not wrap my mind around just, hey, this is what this side needs, and I couldn't. I felt too attached to. I felt too much like I'm like hoarding the thing, or I'm
Yeah.
going with
Siloed.
one side
Yeah.
over the other.
Yeah.
And so once I left to where it was just a head coach, and then we brought in Joe Klanderman, it's like, hey, we need to get this dude as much money as possible. No, he needs more than that. Give him more. And so that's been way freeing. And we've got some really good players on that side right
I
now.
mean, knowing how good defenses you've coached over the years, I mean, some incredible defenses.
It's been very frustrating last couple of years. Very frustrating.
That's how hard has it been on you? I mean, obviously,
hard.
Baylor fans, I know, will let you know that.
Yeah.
For you, you've had some great defenses. You know defensive football.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been really hard. Yeah, I think it's yeah. We looked at. I think today they're putting up some. The CFP was putting up deals of here's Utah season, and they showed our score versus them, and it's just So those are just. I think all that stuff happens for a reason, and the way I look at it, and what can I learn from it, how can I be better at it, and in today's game, and you have to invest, and you got to get a return on your investment. And we just did not put it. I did not put enough money on that side of the ball. We do now. We got really good coaches on that side of the ball, guys that I trust and I believe in, and we're going to be much better there.
What is your relationship with Joe Klanderman like? Did you know him before? Was it just because you'd been around him through the Big 12? Give us a sense here of how you know Joe and how that name came to be for you.
Yeah, it was through Matt Reynolds, who I've coached with before, and Matt's daughter works with us at Baylor, and then it was through just Coach Kleiman. And it was I got to meet Coach Kleiman just through things like this, throughout the years, and so much respect for Matt, and so much respect for Coach that when our opportunity came open, made the call to both of those guys, and they both mentioned Joe. And then, it's funny because in reviewing all of the film from us and, getting ready to play whoever we're playing, a lot of times Kansas State would play them prior. And that would always be the game that I would review again and again. Hey, these guys, they figured this team out, whoever it was. They're playing them smart. Hey, I see why they're doing this. Oh, hey, they set them up here. See what had just happened? And that was Joe. Again and again and again. And that's what I told him. The first time I talked to him on the phone was I told him that, hey, man, your film's been speaking to me for however many years. And it's cool we're getting the chance to talk like this.
So how involved are you then? I mean, because I think you'd be doing disservice to Baylor's defense if you weren't involved in some capacity. And how similar is his style to the style schematically that you've run?
The coverage is going to be way different. Coverage is a lot more, it's either zone or man. I think, Baylor, we ran kind of a more of a matched quarters, matched too high coverages, and his is either it's man or it's zone. And so I think what is important on his side of it is the pre-snap keys and clues, and being able to get to your landmarks and recognize kind of routes that are coming and quarterback indicators, and play fast at the end of it. And so I think it's less of, hey, this is what the defense has got to do. It's more of, hey, here's what the offense is going to do, right? Get to where you're going and play fast. And I think that's needed for us. But I think front-wise, they let the front go. There's a lot of twists and stunts, and trying to get a 1st and 10 to a 2nd and 12, and trying to get out of 3rd and 3 and get to 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9. And so really effective in those down at distances with all the confusion and line stunts, line movements that he uses.
Do you feel like you're going to have a more effective defensive line?
Yes.
And do you know the status of Wheeler at this point in time?
I don't know. Yeah, I wish we did.
Me too.
Yeah, but
He's a game wrecker, man.
He is. Yeah, the front's going to be much better. I think we've gone from one end to the other end, and time's going to tell with that. But we've got guys there that have played a lot of football, guys that have a certain aggression and attitude about them that you want to have on your front, and they've really just changed the whole outlook on that side of it. And then you got Joe that knows how to use them and where to put them, and so you feel good about that mix.
All right, tell us about DJ. DJ Lagway obviously is a guy that was one of the highest recruited quarterbacks ever. What have you seen from him in spring, and do you think that this could be kind of a fresh restart for him?
I'm pulling hard for him. DJ is a kid that all this unbelievable talent, and he's got a heart of gold, and he just wants to have success. I think that his last stop was a hard spot for him. I think there was a lot of incoming that he took, and for him to kind of have, like you're talking about, a fresh start, and to be at a spot where there's other guys that are kind of like him that have had been chopped down, and when they're working their way up, they find this big old chip on their shoulder, and so he's a leader among that. And I think whether it's spring break and he goes to Florida and he's got a bunch of guys going to spring break with him, or it's staying after to work on 7-on-7, or it's watching film with receivers or going through protections with offensive linemen, he is such a leader from on the field and on the grass, and he just brings guys together. And he when just from him being with us for the semester that he was, you sit back and you look at it, and your first takeaway is that this boy wants it. He's working hard. He wants this, and so I think everyone can feel that, and that energizes you when you see that, you feel that.
Baylor football coach Dave Aranda joining us here from the spring meetings for the Big 12 at the Omni PGA Frisco here on Big 12 Radio. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it very much, Coach. Good luck.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Dave Aranda joining us here on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios.
Along with James Westling, I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Trey Wallace from Outkick Coverage joins us coming up in about 15 minutes from now to break down his 2 cents on the Brennan Sorsby saga. Sorsby was ruled was handed an injunction, which ruled in his favor by a Lubbock County court, which will allow him to play this upcoming football season, and the reaction has been overwhelming. All right, it's time for a little valid or void. Here's our producer, Taman Turner. Taman?
Yo, guys. What's up? All right. Topic numero uno. Since we're talking about Texas Tech, we might as well ask, with Brendan Sorsby playing, valid or void? Texas Tech will go undefeated this season. Remember, he is suspended for 2 games.
Well, if they go undefeated, T-Change, that means they would win the College Football National Championship. Or are you talking Big 12 season or regular season? What's the cutoff?
Big 12 championship.
Either way, it's void. Texas Tech is going to lose a game at some point. So during the commercial break, I'm scanning every single Big 12 conference season. I'm to 2011, going backwards. Nobody's gone undefeated. Not a single team has gone undefeated in the regular season in the last 15 years.
What about last year?
Texas Tech lost.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They lost to Arizona State
Arizona State.
on the road.
Yeah.
So even if they Sorsby full strength, he's balling out, Heisman talk, whatever, history would indicate that's very difficult to do. And they have some sneaky road games. They play at Oklahoma State. They play at Baylor. They play TCU on a Thanksgiving night. They play at Cincinnati. They've still got Arizona State on the schedule. It's mathematically nearly impossible to go undefeated. So, no, it's void to me.
I'm going to say valid. Yeah, why not?
Let's do it.
Why do you hate the Big 12 so much, James? Why do you hate Texas Tech so much?
I love the Big 12, and the Big 12 collectively is really good, and that's why they're going to lose a game.
Texas Tech misses Utah and BYU. Their toughest home games are Houston Week 3, Arizona State Week 7, and TCU Week 13. Road slate's also manageable. Oregon State, Colorado, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. What's their toughest road game, James? Oregon State?
It ain't Oregon State.
Colorado, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, Baylor. Yeah, the Texas Tech's national title odds jumped from 25-1 to 14-1. That
14-1?
Yeah, that stat brought to you by your local sports book.
Exactly.
Completely intertwined with college sports in 2026.
Exactly.
I have to say this. I've been listening to you guys' road to Arlington's lot, and I can't wait for the Texas Tech one. But I will say that Houston game now with Sorsby coming back, that might be a trap game.
It's his first game back. It's going to disrupt whoever the starter is those first 2 weeks, but it's at home. I don't see Texas Tech losing it at home. Maybe ever again, actually.
All right, next one. So we're going to get away from football because we have a baseball team in the Big 12 that is playing in the College World Series, West Virginia. So valid or void, West Virginia will win the College World Series.
The whole thing?
The whole thing, all the
Got
marbles.
this one.
Yeah, once again, James, how much do you hate the Big 12? Valid. Absolutely. I'm going to bet on their pitching. First of all, there are 5 SEC teams in the Omaha field. It's the most ever for one conference. And West Virginia does not have to play them in the opening round. Out of the 5 SEC teams that made it, West Virginia gets Troy. So you get a great draw. You've got the best, arguably the best pitching staff left. And by the way, an offense that has just been on point, outscoring Cal Poly 29-3 in a 2-game super regional. So yeah, absolutely, this is valid. Go hang a banner, West Virginia.
Country road.
Take me home
Now,
to the place I belong. West
this isn't
Virginia.
Let's Get It On, so I can agree.
Correct.
Just to want to make sure that I know the rules and the company policy.
You can agree, and I, quite frankly, probably should agree here.
Yeah, this one's valid because that's a great note. The SEC's won how many straight? 5 or 6, but West Virginia doesn't face them until the granddaddy of them all. You get Troy, and West Virginia is shattering records. They outscored Cal Poly 29-3. Runs, batting average, dingers, all new program records and NCAA Super Regional records for runs scored in a 2-game set This is a program that has been building towards this, and Omaha's about to be a West Virginia takeover.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question mark that I have, James, how many Jell-O shots at Rocco's for West Virginia fans? It's the only question we know and need to know.
We asked Jamie Plunkett the same thing. They're going to absolutely shatter those records. They are coming for Coastal Carolina.
My biggest disappointment in Kansas not making the field is that I don't get to go to Omaha and participate in the Rocco's Jell-O Shot Challenge.
What a great thing they do also. Like, everybody's like, oh, it's just Jell-O shots and drinking. No, they cut like a $500,000 check to a local children's cancer research charity.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's really
Helps
good.
justify $2 Jell-O shots.
By the way,
$5, whatever they
I
are.
wouldn't trust the Jell-O.
By the way, the New York Yankees have the most World Series in MLB history, and Steve Saban said that that West Virginia baseball is the New York Yankees of West Virginia. So I'm picking West Virginia to win it all. Just saying. Those are Steve
Got
Saban's
it.
words, not mine. All right, valid or void. We're going back to football. We're going back to Texas Tech. Brendan Sorsby, you know that guy's playing. He will win the Heisman this season. Valid or void?
Void. Sorsby's not winning the Heisman, even if he has a Heisman-like season. He's the most hated man in college football.
Yeah, he'd have to throw for
Justified,
like 10,000 yards.
like NFL Blitz PS2 type numbers.
He'd have to cure cancer and be able to walk on water. And they'd
And
still be like, but he gambled.
Runner-up.
I mean, I know he just turned water to wine, but he did gamble on
Gonna
sports.
send him to New York. No, that'd be too much for him. No, he's not winning the Heisman.
Yeah, I couldn't void this fast enough. If the pearl clutching has not become a fever pitch quite yet on social media, believe me this, if Sorsby has anything resembling a Heisman Trophy season, you're going to have so much pearl clutching, it's going to be, quite frankly, impressive. The holier-than-thou writers, I can't wait to see how they twist themselves into pretzels. Like, it will just be one trying to outdo the other of like, not only have I taken him off my ballot entirely, I've removed the word Brendan everywhere in my house. Like, it's just going to go on and on. Like, it's going to be wild how widespread the pro clutching will be. Like, how much moral superiority can one person have? We're going to find out if Sorsby's in the Heisman race.
Oof. Yeah, I don't think he's winning the Heisman either. Just throwing that out there. All right, next one, valid or void.
I can't wait to see what he does on the field.
Right.
Like, what remember, I just pulled up his game logs from Cincinnati. Back-to-back seasons. He did not have good games against the toughest teams on their schedule. He did not have good months the final month of the regular season. Why? We're about to find out.
What wasn't it? Ari, didn't you say he hasn't won in 2 years in the month of November when he was at Cincinnati?
Well, Cincinnati has not won in November in 2 months or 2 years, so yeah.
Yeah. Oof. All right.
Good point.
All right. Our next one, valid or void. A former Big 12 player will win Offensive or Defensive Rookie of the Year in the National Football League this season.
Me, you, me.
Yeah, valid. Are you kidding? In fact, they may sweep it. Jordan Tyson and David Bailey might end up sweeping this category. I mean, you've got 2 top 10 picks. Both are going to be featured aspects of their teams. Bailey, of course, is an edge rusher, and Jordan Tyson as the number 1 receiver for the New Orleans Saints. So this could absolutely be a season in which the Big 12 has a offensive and defensive rookie of the year. I know the question was just 1, but I think in this case we could be looking at 2.
The impact that the Big 12 has had on the NFL has been tremendous. You've got Shedeur Sanders, who played a lot better the last 2 or 3 games of the regular season than I think anybody anticipated, playing way above where he was drafted. And then he shatters NFL records for merchandise year 1. $17 million sold, his jersey, everybody's wearing it.
Wow.
T-Mac also wins Rookie of the Year. And for an encore, I validate this as well. Fernando Mendoza's the number 1 player taken in the draft, but he went to the Raiders. Full stop, that's all you need to know. The next highest rated offensive player is Jeremiah Love, a running back who goes to Arizona, where they have an anemic offense. Jordan Tyson's spot with the Saints, absolutely. He steps in right away as a starter. Wide receiver 2 has legitimate wide receiver 1 upside. If he stays healthy, he could have a T-Mac type season for the Saints. It doesn't seem to matter who their quarterback is. They throw for a ton of yards because they're either way up or way down And then David Bailey's got Will McDonald on the other side. Like David Bailey, a 14.5 sack getter last season at Texas Tech. He could have double-digit sacks in his rookie year. So between those two, absolutely I validate this.
I've got dark horse Malachi Lawrence as the defensive rookie of the year for the Dallas Cowboys.
I like it. I've got dark horse Spencer Fano, offensive tackle for the Browns.
Interesting.
That was a joke.
not
I don't
gonna-
think an offensive lineman's ever won rookie of the year.
And a Browns lineman at that.
I was going to say, though.
He's just pancaking.
Well, I don't think that Fano will win Rookie of the Year because it's hard for him to do it being on the line.
He'll be on the
I
all-rookie
do think
team.
he will. Yeah, I do think I wouldn't be surprised if he's the best rookie. He's very good.
Yeah.
He's not going to win, but he might be the best rookie. All right, last one, guys. Let's take it home. Valid or void, L.J. Martin, over at BYU, will lead the Big 12 in rushing in 2026.
Valid. He led the Big 12 in rushing last year at 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns, over 5.5 yards per carry. 2 years ago, he was pacing to be a top 3 rusher in the Big 12 before he got hurt. He's also a pass-catching threat. BYU is going to be more explosive, I believe, offensively. They have a very underrated hidden strength alert offensive line in the Big 12. As Bear Bachmeier continues to expand his ability as a passer, oh yeah, give me L.J. Martin to lead the league in rushing again.
I'm going to void this. I don't know that you've got enough faith in the rest of the running backs in this conference, specifically at Texas Tech. I don't know if you've heard, but Brandon Sorsby is now eligible to play for the upcoming season.
Samson.
Sorsby.
Got it.
So with
Swanson?
Jacoby Williams and Cameron Dickey both being back, Quentin Joyner, I think there's a good chance that Texas Tech could have the leading rusher in the Big 12. Also think there's a chance K-State could have a leading rusher in the Big 12.
Joe Jackson.
TCU could have a leading rusher in the Big 12.
Jeremy Payne.
A lot of options out there, so I'm going to void
What about Caleb Hawkins, too, at Oklahoma
L.J.
State?
Martin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, our road to Arlington, BYU. We'll talk a lot about L.J. Martin coming up at the top of the hour. On the way next, though, Trey Wallace, who is the senior national college football sports reporter for Outkick and for Fox, joins us. He's been a frequent guest of ours across this Brandon Sorsby saga, and we'll check in with him to see how hypocritical the SEC is being. That's next. This is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Introduces himself to Scotty Fox in the backfield.
Horned Frogs show pressure. Kevin Jennings retreating. Bottles up and now goes down to the 5.
Level the red zone.
And down he goes. How about those active ends and linebackers, huh? Caleb Elarmzor all over the place. This kid can play. Senior from Hayward, California. Option to the wide side counters. Great play. Elarmzor again. That young man has just been outstanding all day.
Company through Sama. And not much out there. They had the edge sealed. And he's swung down by Elarmzor.
Down behind the line of scrimmage.
Hard in the running back. Coming in from Westwood after 3 seasons. Elarmzor. The tackle behind the line, the TFL.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, reacting with you to the latest news around the Big 12 and the college and sports world right now, which is the status of Brendan Sorsby, who yesterday was granted an injunction based on a Lubbock County Supreme Court. The ruling indicated a 2-game suspension as well for Sorsby, which is unprecedented in college athletics. Let's talk about it all now with Trey Wallace, our buddy from Fox and Outkick. What's up, Trey? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Still trying to, I guess, I don't know. I'm still reeling from yesterday. It's been a slam-packed 24 hours, and I can promise you it's going to be a more interesting 72 hours ahead.
Yeah. And Trey, I mean, I guess I'm sort of surprised at how surprised people are, given one, sort of the history and context associated with the NCAA taking losses in court, one.
Right.
And then two, I mean, I know you've been doing a ton of investigative work here. Like, how surprised were you on this?
So, I'm not going to lie. I was shocked yesterday morning, but I'd kind of set myself up for it. Last Thursday, the judge in this case, essentially he asked both sides to present some arguments regarding a Texas A&M player, Rashawn Aggie, from last year, who was granted a court injunction to be able to play for the Aggies when the NCAA first denied him. So when I went back and I saw that, and I saw it last Thursday because I get these alerts, when things are filed, and both sides presented 700 pages of documentation about this one case. And at that moment, I'm not going to act as if I thought this was coming, but at that moment I was like, okay, either the judge is setting this thing up to be appeal-proof, or he's about to rule in Sorsby's favor. And so at that time, I started writing. I started putting together something, and yesterday you fill in the blanks type of ordeal. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with the rest of the country. I mean, I know that we sit here and we say, okay, a judge, blah blah blah, Lubbock District Court. I mean, the judge was based out of Houston. This was a retired judge. I think that them being able to use certain aspects of their defense, I think, set them up in a nice way for the judge to be able to rule against the NCAA. So, long answer to it. Yeah, I was shocked, but I'd kind of set myself up for the craziness.
Wait, Trey, did you say he was a retired judge?
Yes, he was a retired judge out of Houston. So once the first judge recused himself in Lubbock District Court because he was tied to Texas Tech. I mean, He had 50-yard line tickets to the football games, blah, blah, blah. Yes, this was a judge that was essentially appointed out of Houston, and he took the case. Yep.
Okay. And then you had a tweet yesterday. I'd love to get more of your thoughts on. You said you can't, on one hand, fight for legislation reform for the NCAA to uphold the most obvious rules in athletics, but on the other hand, praise a decision that allows Sorsby to play for your school. I love that you say pick a lane, because that's kind of been a theme for us this morning. What can you just expand on that?
Yeah, I think it was, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to pull it up. I think it was the statement from Cody Campbell yesterday in regards to all this that he sent to all of us when he said, this unfortunate situation is the outcome of a broken system. It's like, nah, man, I'm sorry. This part was not broken. The NCAA had this right. There are rules that says you cannot bet on your own team. And if you do, you're going to be punished for it. Look at the previous cases we've had over the last, let's just say 10 years. We can cut it down to 10 years. Look what happened at Iowa State, Iowa. I could go on and on. This part's not broken, man. And if he's also trying to say, and I'm not trying to direct all of this at Cody Campbell, I am saying that, trying to use what's going on with legislation and whatnot as a crutch with this situation of Brendan Sorsby gambling. Again, not just on his own team. He bet on Indiana basketball. He bet on Cincinnati basketball. He plays $6,000 worth of bets on other college football games. By the way, this is stuff he admitted. So it's not as if this is some just conjecture out there and we're jumping to conclusion. No, he admitted this. So I think that us, not us as in the media, but us as society, potentially trying to find a crutch to use in this, and let's just blame it on the system again. This is why we need legislation. No, I disagree with you here. because the NCAA stood firm on their rules in this. And it's not often, guys, I agree with the NCAA, but on this one, okay, yes. And I think at the same time, we can't sit around here and just blame things on what we perceive to be broken, because what's broken? College athletics has been technically broken for years. So like, why all of a sudden are we trying to use this? It's because there's legislation in Washington, D.C. right now that they're trying to pass. And, and the other best part, I'm not trying to go long here, but he said, I'm doing everything I can to fix it. But until there's a permanent solution, Texas Tech and its student athletes have to do the best they can to navigate and compete amid the chaos that exists and the reality of the world that we live in. Texas Tech could have said, hey, man, you violated about 5 different ethics clauses in your contract, your rev share agreement, and your NIL agreement. We're not paying you anymore. And by the way, we're also going to take you to court for the $3.5 million essentially that you've already been paid. Like, so that's why I find this a little bit laughable when it comes to the responses from some out of Lubbock. And again, I'm not hating on the Texas Tech fan base here. Texas Tech stood by their quarterback, and that's fine. They also had a lot of money invested. They had a CFP potentially spot on the line with him. Like, I get it. I'm not dumb here, but at the same time, please don't act as if you're all holier than thou for stepping up and trying to support this athlete who just used mental health and addiction as an excuse for a court case.
Yeah, and look, I think it's obvious that Cody Campbell is being, pretty hypocritical here. Do you think, though, that there's other instances in which we're seeing hypocrites expose themselves in the media publicly, maybe specifically Josh Brooks or SEC administrators who were, as recently as a few weeks ago calling for, self-governance because they rejected the rules that the CSC has in place?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree one bit. I think that what you're going to see and you're going to continue to see is the court of public opinion, a.k.a. a lot of these universities, they're going to come out and stack up on Texas Tech, which, by the way, like, I can't say I blame them, but at the same time, it's like, guys, y'all are talking about scheduling. These schedules are done 7 years in advance. Your threats do nothing. Like, Brendan Sorsby will be long gone. Who knows if Joey McGuire's there? Who knows if Kirby Hokut's there? Like, you're not like, I get what you're doing. You're trying to build up court of public opinion support, but at the same time, it's kind of stupid because what are you going to do? Oh, you know what? In 2036, I'm not going to play Texas Tech. Who gives a crap? It'll be 2036. Like, nobody. So I just think there's a lot of playing the game here. I can't say I blame them. I get it. At the same time, I'd rather see most of this come from the Big 12 than the Big 10, SEC, ACC. Like, I don't care what they want to do when it comes to scheduling.
Trey Wallace is a senior national college sports reporter for Fox and Outkick. Trey, it is not lost on me that Texas Tech is the new kid on the block when it comes to having the resources and finances to compete at the highest level. Mm-hmm. If Brendan Sorsby was the quarterback at LSU, would this look any different, in your opinion?
You'd have I'm trying to be careful with the names here that I put out there. You would have Governor Landry of Louisiana, most likely. You'd have Lane Kiffin. You'd have others that would probably come out and support it. It's funny you bring that hypothetical up because I thought about it yesterday. Like, would Kirby Hokut at Texas Tech feel the same way about a young man if the quarterback in question here that maybe gambled was Arch Manning? Like, would he come out and support and say, cool, man, like, yeah, he deserves to play, irreparable harm. We pray for his mental health and his addiction and whatnot. Like, would he stand on the same ground and say, we agree? And here's the other thing. I think that obviously there are people that have empathy. I have empathy for Brendan Sorsby. Like, I get it, man. He is battling something. But at the same time, we can't use these reasonings as a way to say, okay, I broke the law 4 years ago. And by the way, he kept breaking the law up until about 3 months ago. But we'll just say 4 years ago, he bet on the worst thing he could do. We can't say, okay, well, you know what? You're saying you have a mental health problem and addiction. We'll just let the punishment slide. No. And then at the same time, you're only going to do a 2-game suspension. It's like, wait a minute. Like, I've seen people get suspended for a whole year for signing a jersey and selling it on eBay. Like, how are we making this comparison where 2 games is enough in this spot? So, I to get back to go full circle on it, I think you would see the same thing at a majority of schools if the quarterback wasn't good enough. Here's the other kicker, too.
Yeah, right.
If the quarterback wasn't good enough, and he was kind of a mid-tier quarterback, but he was returning to be the starter, and we'll see how it goes, you wouldn't see this type of support system an outcry from a fan base because, all right, let's just go to the backup. So that's what makes this whole thing kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, well said. What do you think of the results here, Trey? Like, what do you think ends up becoming a byproduct of this? Do we get a collective bargaining agreement? Do you think that Texas Tech will give in to public pressure? Like, what do you think? How do you think this ends?
Texas Tech has already dug their heels in here.
Yeah.
There's going to be some interesting stuff that comes out of the Big 12, I think, in the next 48 hours. They are looking for ways to see, okay, what legally can the Big 12 do to be able to punish Texas Tech? And by the way, like, either way, if they punish them, they're going to end up in court. My non-lawyer head would be, okay, suspend Brendan Sorsby for a number of games for the upcoming season, have him take you back to court, and then you can open up discovery and you can do all this stuff again. So now it's battling not only the NCAA, now you're battling the Big 12 Conference. And in that case, the Big 12 would have more of a leg to stand on because Brendan Sorsby, it's not fighting the NCAA, it's fighting the Big 12 Conference where he had multiple opportunities to go to other schools across the country. So the argument a little bit gets different. I think what you're going to see is continued outcry from schools across the country. Some of them that have no business being in a conversation about the Big 12 because they don't play, maybe one of the schools. But again, you're going to see your mark and other ADs from the Big 12 come out with stronger statements. And you ask collective bargaining. Look, there's always a play. Cody Campbell on Tuesday morning put out an op-ed in USA Today talking about the Protect College Sports Act. Like, I know that thing was pre-written probably about 6 or 7 days ago, and this is just the day that they're publishing it. But at the same time, there's going to be another congressional push because they think, well, you know what? We can establish more power in the system, and maybe this wouldn't be the case down the road when it really just comes down to don't bet on your own team. Like, I don't care if you bet on the UFC or the NBA. I really don't care. Just don't bet on your own team and don't bet on the college sports that have championships. This is about as simple as it can get. And I don't know what Congress would do, in a sense of being able to make sure this doesn't happen again. I mean, you could obviously pass some antitrust exemptions, but at the same time, guys, you all know this. You're going to end up in a courtroom anyways.
Trey, do you see a path with the Big 12 holding their conference call, the SEC getting together? Do you see a path or, I guess, a chance that Sorsby doesn't play, or do you think it's set in stone? Like, he's going to sit 2 games, he's going to play the rest of the year, and it's done, over?
Oh, man. I don't think it helps. I'm not saying he's not going to play, but here's what I am going to say. We still got, 3 months until the season starts? There's a lot of things that can happen in 3 months. There is the court of public opinion is not on the side of Texas Tech. Now, I said yesterday to a number of people that Texas Tech needs to just embrace their inner NWO. I'm going to go back a little bit, pro wrestling days.
Yes.
Embrace that NWO. Be the villain. I think the last time I saw that, the University of Tennessee baseball team under Tony Vitello, they were absolutely hated in 2023 and 2024 for their antics and whatnot off the field and how they went about things. To me, it kind of feels like that. I'm not trying to compare baseball to football, but I think you know where I'm going here. It's Texas Tech athletic department needs to say, yep, it's us against the world. We're the villains. We'll play this up. Come beat us. But if we win, oh boy, buckle up. Like, we're going to rub it in your face. I think that there is a chance that Sorsby still doesn't play this year, but I'm curious to see what route a few are going to take to see if that is a possibility.
Trey Wallace does great work for Outkick and Fox. Trey, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Trey.
Hey, thank you all for having me. Have a wonderful week. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Appreciate you. Great insight there from Trey Wallace, who's done a great job in doing his own research and own work here, investigation on the Sorsby saga. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. The road to Arlington continues next. We're giving you our thoughts on BYU. Biggest question marks, biggest gamble, trap game, biggest game, 3-game stretch to define the season. All of that on the way next. This is Big 12 Today with James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin. We are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Bachmeyer delivers, caught miraculously by Chase Roberts.
Comfortable in the pocket here. Chase Roberts turning it, coming the other way, inside the 30, and Chase Roberts. And it is a bookstore, but it's really a museum.
Well, they might put that one in the museum one day. Good catch by Chase Roberts at BYU. 5 minutes to go in the first. Bachmeyer surveys, pulls, touchdown Cougars. Mr. BYU, Chase Roberts.
Off the RPO, what a strike. Chase Roberts chugging across the 40, tight ropes the sideline, and finally pulled down by Darian Lewis at the 4-yard line.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. Heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios, and we've continued to keep football alive even during the offseason because, remember, there is no off in offseason. There is only research. So that is what we've undertaken throughout this entire offseason. And we have made our way from 16 to 2 here, going through the road to Arlington. Every single Big 12 team's path on the road to Arlington. And we reach the final two teams here, both teams that played in Arlington last year. So this is about getting back to Arlington as opposed to all these other teams we've talked about, which is about getting there. The road to Arlington, BYU. James Westling, Ari Temkin. Biggest question mark.
Man, and when I look at the two teams that we're covering over the next 2 days, both teams have the talent, the schedule, and the experience to play in the college football playoff this year, regardless of what happens if they do meet in Arlington. My biggest question mark, though, is the wide receiver room. BYU lost their top 3 pass catchers from last year's team. Chase Roberts off to the NFL. Carson Ryan, arguably the best blocking, pass-catching tight end in the league. And then Parker Kingston. That abrupt departure, he was expected to be back. That's a big hole. Now, JoJo Phillips, I know they're really excited about his speed and what he's done in camp, but he's still a guy that only had 14 catches last season. Kyler Caspers, a really high-ceiling transfer from Oregon. He's 6'6", but he's had a ton of injury issues throughout his career, which is why he couldn't get on the field for the Ducks. So Bear Bachmeier threw for 3,000 yards last season, but to not a lot of guys that are on this year's team. So that's probably my biggest question mark is the receiver room for the Cougs.
Yeah, I have two, and it starts with who's going to catch the football. I think you just documented it well there. Chase Roberts was known that he wasn't going to be back, obviously, from an eligibility standpoint. Parker Kingston was more of a surprise, but who emerges here? The tight end room looks really good. But for this team to really take that next step and recognize their potential, they're going to need some consistent pass catchers. The other question is their defense. And nobody's going to question the defensive personnel, but you did lose your defensive coordinator and your secondary coach who helped to build up what was a very productive and great secondary. So I just think those two things, for me, are huge question marks. The defense, can they pick up where they've left off? And the pass catchers, who's going to be able to catch passes for BYU this year? All right, biggest gamble.
Yeah, my biggest gamble, and you just hit it there, promoting Kelly Papinga to defensive coordinator. On paper, that's the right move. BYU doesn't hire from outside the family for the most part, but Jay Hill was there for a long time. And the asterisk with him leaving for Michigan is that he took his defensive passing game coordinator with him. So they didn't just lose Jay Hill, they lost their top 2 defensive coaches. Now Papinga, who's been the special teams coordinator forever, loyal, rock-solid coach, but this is a massive jump for him in terms of responsibility. And he spent 3 days of making phone calls after the announcement that he was going to be the new DC to talk players out of entering the portal one by one, which shows the loyalty that a lot of these guys had for Jay Hill, but also might have for Papinga. So it could go really well, or to your point on question marks, we could see regression. That's my biggest gamble.
Yeah. Look, I didn't view that as a gamble because the decision was sort of forced on them. For me, a gamble is something that happens as a product of a decision and not necessarily a decision that was forced on you. Meaning Jay Hill left.
Right.
And took his passing game coordinator with him. So I don't view the Papinga thing as a gamble for me, and there aren't many gambles.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing. This team is just so solid throughout. I struggle to find one.
Right, and I think that's the case when you kind of get to this top half of the league. You're taking less gambles. But for me, it's the receiver position. Did you do enough in the portal to invest enough to where you're good enough at the wide receiver position? And that remains to be seen. Look, the Kingston stuff might have come out of nowhere, and so that very well could have been a huge surprise for them. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But I think if we're here to look at what is potentially a big gamble, it is without a doubt that they maybe didn't do enough to improve the wide receiver position this offseason. All right, let's take a deep dive into their schedule. What's their trap game?
So I think there's several. I looked at their road game at KU as potentially a trap game, but I highlight the game at UCF on Saturday, October 24th. The Bounce House in Orlando. Even if UCF is struggling, that's early enough in the season that, like, UCF's not going to be – they're not going to be a team that's been eliminated from making a bowl game or anything to that degree. They will still have something to play for. And that game is a long road trip, fresh off the heels of the Notre Dame game on October 17th, and it's sandwiched between Notre Dame and Arizona State. So you're at home against Notre Dame, long trip to Orlando, and then you're back home against Arizona State. That screams trap game for me because BYU, I don't think BYU's ever played in the Bounce House. They're 2-0 against the Knights, but both games were in Provo. So this is their first trip to the Bounce House. Just one more reason why that's my trap game.
Yeah, the trap game for me is Iowa State at home on October 9th, which is a Friday night. I get yours, and that was one I certainly thought about. I just don't know how much of a trap game it could be on the road. But for me, it's you've got a Friday night game which follows your conference opener on the road, a tough game, and then you've got Notre Dame the week after. Huge trap game spot against an Iowa State team that is going to be hungry. This is a meat and potatoes kind of football team. They play defense. They run behind Jimmy Rogers. So I just think it's a really tough spot, given it's a Friday night game. The Notre Dame game the following week, Iowa State to me, October 9th, is the trap game. All right, what's the biggest game?
Biggest game on BYU's schedule, well, they don't play Texas Tech. It's Notre Dame, October 17th.
Yeah, there's not much of a question here.
Notre Dame comes to Provo for the first time since 2004. Both teams finished the final regular season poll, top 11 in the country, and just missed out on the playoff. This is also a massive, measuring stick game nationally for not just BYU, but also the entire conference. The BYU as a mid-major pretender argument is absolutely dead, killed, done if they win this game. It's a huge stage for the league. That's the biggest game on their schedule.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question here that this is the biggest game on their schedule. Notre Dame, October 17th. BYU has been playing organized football since 1922 and has never hosted a top 10 matchup. Presumably, October 17th changes that. BYU Athletic Director Brian Santiago told KSL Sports, quote, "It'll be one of the most viewed football games the entire season," end quote. Early betting lines have BYU as a 10.5-point home underdog. Notre Dame, by the way, holds the second-best national championship odds behind Ohio State. BYU and Notre Dame are the only two schools in college football with 60% or more returning snaps at every defensive position.
10.5?
10.5.
That's a large line for two teams that should be in the top. Notre Dame, top 5. BYU by then, probably in the top 10 when you look at the games they have before it.
Yeah, and look, this is just a monumental game for BYU and for the Big 12, quite frankly. It's the first time you mentioned this. The Irish came to Provo since 2004. This game is going to be everything for the Big 12, everything for BYU this year. Remember, the Big 12 gets judged ultimately on just a few games, and this is certainly one of them.
Yeah.
All right, what's the 3-game swing stretch here?
Yeah, so when you look at their schedule, the toughest games on their schedule are followed by very winnable games. So I look at games that they'll be more than likely heavy favorites in and try to avoid those. So I start after their bye week, a 3-game stretch at TCU, Iowa State at home, your trap game on a Friday night, and then Notre Dame at home. Because I think at TCU and Notre Dame could be the two toughest games on their schedule. They get Arizona at home. Now, they do play at Utah, but Utah has a completely new defense, and the Cougs have won 3 in a row in that series for the first time since the 80s that anybody's done that. TCU also, I think, is a really sneaky game on October 3rd. That could be, I look for potential losses for BYU, and I think Notre Dame and TCU are the two most likely teams to beat them, and so that's the 3-game stretch for me.
Yeah, the 3-game swing stretch for me is actually pretty obvious, and it's UCF, Arizona State, and at Utah, October 24th, October 31st, November 7th. And the reason for that is, while the Notre Dame game is the biggest game, unquestionably on their schedule, it really has no bearing on the outcome of the Big 12 season. And so, for me, it starts with what could very well be their second trap game, the UCF game. And then Arizona State comes to Provo for the first time as Big 12 conference opponents. It's the first time Arizona State is playing in Provo since 2021, and there's going to be legitimate Big 12 title implications with it. And then remember, of course, BYU and Arizona State played a classic in Tempe a few years ago where the fans ran out onto the field before the game was officially over. They had to send the fans back. It was wild finish. And then, of course, they finish this stretch at Utah. If BYU can navigate this stretch 3-0, they are going to Arlington. That's the reason this is the 3-game swing stretch. Because if they finish with wins at UCF, Arizona State, and Utah, their final 4 games, Cincinnati, Kansas, all very, very, very winnable.
And Baylor.
Thank you. At home. So, for me, the entire season for BYU comes down to those 3 games. And does not include Notre Dame because, again, the Notre Dame game has no bearing on the Big 12 championship race.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the Utah game, the Notre Dame game is the biggest game on their schedule for the Big 12 conference. But the biggest game on their schedule is probably still the Holy War because of what's at stake.
Right.
Nobody's ever won more than 3 in a row since the 80s.
And BYU has won 3 in a row.
Won 3 straight, and they've all come down to the wire. And remember last year, Utah had more yards than BYU, but they couldn't convert on 4th downs. They kept going for it on 4th down. They were stopped 3 times inside the 30-yard line. Utah was stopped twice inside the 20-yard line and just couldn't get over the hump. So Utah's going to be out for blood. That series is always elite and bone-rattling crowds wherever it's played. But this year, if things come together for that Utah defense, that could be a top 10 showdown.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I think that 3-game swing stretch at UCF, Arizona State, and at Utah will define the BYU season. All right, plenty more to come as we continue on the road to Arlington BYU, including the one player they can't lose, the hidden strength, the number. What number will most quantify the season for BYU? The pressure point, what success actually looks like, and why they will and why they won't win the Big 12. That's all coming up as we continue our series, breaking down all of the major questions around the road to Arlington BYU on our final 2 here with BYU and Texas Tech over these next 2 days. And a reminder that if you missed any of our Road to Arlington series, you can check those out at youtube.com. Just search Big 12 Conference on our podcast page, wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can also be listening along to our Big 12 Power Hour every single day, starting at 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. You get a boatload of original content straight from the Big 12, including the Road to Arlington BYU, which you can catch at 3 o'clock today after we finish our series on the Road to Arlington BYU, which continues next. With James Amari, it's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, and watched on Big 12 Studios.
On 3rd and 12, backside heat, fumbled it, it came out. Ball's on the ground. Cougars recover at the 5. Big hit by Jack Kelly.
3rd and 16. Jordan over the middle again. It's caught by Alvarez, but he's going to be taken down at the 39. It's to the hole. Here's the kick. It's blocked. And BYU trying to run it back here. Jack Kelly, who just made the defensive play. Oh, he does this.
Pressure coming from Kelly. Dampier hit and down he goes. Jack Kelly may have sealed it for BYU.
Inside pressure on Hauser, and he's dropped. Jack Kelly, it was just a matter of time. For the season getting worked on here. Backside pressure. Hauser feels it, will not get away. And that is number 2 for Jack Kelly.
On the draw, dangerously close to being a safety. Micah Ford hit by who else? The ubiquitous, ever-present Jack Kelly. Salter flushed out, being spotted, dragged down at the 38-yard line by Jack Kelly.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. And this is our Road to Arlington series, continuing with BYU. James Westling on social at James Westling. I'm Ari Temkin on social at Ari Sports, ARI Sports. All right, so we've just done our biggest question, biggest gamble, trap game, biggest game, 3-game swing stretch when it comes to BYU. Let's hit on the one player they can't lose.
Yeah, I go with the running back, LJ Martin, because 2 years ago when he missed time, BYU's ground game fell apart. Led the Big 12 in rushing yards, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year last year, turned down the NFL to come back for one more shot at a Big 12 title. Now, he had surgery to work on that shoulder that has been bothering him, but he's pacing to be on track for the fall. He'll be fine. But without him, Bear Bachmeier doesn't have that ground game that he can lean on. And I think Bear Bachmeier, what he showed me in the bowl game and everything we've heard from this spring, he's not going to be a quarterback that you have to hide or be a game manager this season. So it's not as big of a deal if LJ Martin goes down in terms of the passing offense. But Simone Moe is the backup, and he was the guy that got the workload when LJ Martin was hurt 2 years ago. And the ground game, yards per carry plummeted, yards per game plummeted. So the depth behind LJ Martin is another factor why I think he is the number one guy they can't lose this year.
Yeah, I think it's Bear. Give me the Bear. This dude was the heart and soul of last year's squad. As a true freshman, he's just got something, and I don't know what it is, but you can't describe it. When you see it, you know exactly what it is.
Swagger.
He's got unflappable confidence. I love him. I love it. When we talked with him and did an interview with him, just the confidence level that he has, it's almost irrational, but it's borderline what you need to be successful. And look, they've got some other guys that can play the position, and we've heard about Trayson Bourget, but this team has got no shot to get back to Arlington without Bear. Bear had 11 rushing touchdowns, 527 rushing yards. Remember, Ollie Gordon returned for Oklahoma State as leading rusher with Alan Bowman at quarterback. Okay? It's a little bit different in terms of LJ Martin not taking a step back with a quarterback who can rush the football to keep defenses honest. There's no greater individual to the overall success of BYU than Bear Bachmeier. It's the reason they can't lose him. All right, hidden strength, James.
Yeah, I go with the offensive line, and I want to highlight their offensive line coach, who is TJ Woods. I think he's quietly one of the best assistant coaches in this league. He joined BYU staff in 2024, and it's been a ground game transformation. The way they use their tight ends, in pass protection. The last two quarterbacks, the last two seasons, also never get hit. Bear Bachmeier, the protection, the pocket that he had. Jake Retzloff, the pocket that he had. And the offensive line for BYU returns, number one, they return 3 starters. Maybe the best center in the league, the only all-Big 12 center in this conference coming back. And then they add a Stanford transfer. They add a Washington transfer, guys that have a ton of starts under their belt, and a Utah State transfer to replace those guys. I just love the depth. If that line continues to gel at the pace we saw last year, LJ Martin and Bear Bachmeier could have monster seasons, and all of a sudden that offense goes from being pretty good to elite in the Big 12.
Yeah, for me, it is linebacker, and maybe this shouldn't be a hidden strength, because if we were to power rank, and maybe we should do this tomorrow, the top 5 positional groups in the Big 12, BYU's defense, and specifically linebackers, might be at the top of the list. The Cougars will most likely have 2 all-conference type players in Isaiah Glasker and then Cal transfer Cade Ulave, who we spent all off-season talking about. He was an all-conference ACC member last year, and along with Sarah, and then K-State transfer Jake Clifton, Miles Hall. This is a position of depth, a position of strength. Again, don't know that it's hugely hidden, because I think if you watch this team and if you follow this team a little bit, you'll know that the linebacking core is good. They do lose Jack Kelly, obviously, and he got drafted, so I think that stands out as being a guy they need to replace. But beyond that, for me, the linebackers are maybe the greatest strength for anybody on BYU. All right, what's the number?
Yeah, so the number that I highlight is a number that I heard you mention just a moment ago talking about Bear Bachmeier, and it's number 11 because Bear Bachmeier set the BYU single-season record for rushing touchdowns as a freshman with 11. He doesn't have to hit that mark this year, I think, for this BYU offense to be uber explosive because of his improvement as a passer, but he was one of only 28 quarterbacks to ever hit the rushing and passing yardage numbers, and he did it as a true freshman. 3,000 yards through the air, 527 on the ground, had a really solid yards per carry average of almost 6. But 11 rushing touchdowns, that dual threat dimension is what makes him the quarterback that is so incredibly challenging to prepare for. And the Iowa State game is proof of concept because L.J. Martin went down in the first quarter. Bachmeier carried the offense the rest of the way. They go on to win that thing 41-27 after being down 24-10. He exploded with his legs. And this year, the defenses will scheme a little bit more for it, but they also have to scheme for his ability and his improvement as a downfield passer. So if he gets to 11, watch out for that BYU offense. Could be a top 5 offense nationally if he does that again with everything else around him.
My number is 20, and that would be the amount of carries for L.J. Martin per game. That's the target. Aaron Roderick said this offseason that LJ will be getting 20 carries per game. If he is to repeat his success, which is not an easy thing to do, leading the Big 12 in rushing in back-to-back years, 20 is going to be the most telling number. Remember, Sonny Dykes already told us, and we keep seeing it, the best rushing teams end up in Arlington. Tech and BYU are unquestionably the best rushing teams in the Big 12 in 2025. If BYU is to remain one of the best teams in the Big 12 in 2026, it starts with LJ Martin in terms of his ability to run the football effectively. Martin in 2025 finished with 147 carries across the season, so basically 10.5 per game. Remember, he missed time, and so he had a great season but didn't scratch the surface of 20 per game, which would be 260 carries over 13 regular season games. Bear and LJ working together to help defenses stay honest against a very formidable rushing team. So, I mean, the 20 carries per game thing to me is very telling because if they don't get there, it's LJ got hurt, it's the offensive line's not winning, it's their passing game is off, right? Like, to me, if LJ Martin is not able to get to 20 carries per game and he's more in what he was last year, I think that says a lot about the approach and the flaws of this BYU football team. So for me, the number is 20 because it's the target for carries per game for LJ Martin, and if they're not able to get there, then that tells us a completely different story about the season for BYU football.
Yeah, he averaged 18 per game, and his last 4 games in the regular season, he had 21, 32, 22, and 19, and he had his best games down the stretch when he did get that workload.
Give me his game log per carry every game. Just go down the list.
8, 18, 14, 15, and then it ramps up in Big 12 play. 21, 25, 26. But the Iowa State game that I noted, he only had 5 carries. And the next game against Texas Tech, he was really beat up. He only had 10.
Yeah.
And then it was 21, 32, 22. So health is uber important for LJ Martin.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. This is our Road to Arlington series focused in on BYU. All right, the pressure point. Who's under the most pressure?
Man, is anybody really under pressure at BYU? But if there was one guy, I would probably lean Kalani Sitake because BYU, they've got the most wins in the Big 12 over the past 2 seasons, 23, but they've never won the conference title. He lost his defensive coordinator in Michigan. Like, the program is no longer just excited about a 10 or 11 win season. They're expected to have a 10 or 11 win season. That's a different kind of pressure than what BYU's been under pre-Big 12 or even year 1 in the Big 12. So I'd probably lean Kalani Sitake.
Yeah, I think you could make the case that it's Kelly Papinga.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I like your case for Sitake. I get it. And again, going back, like, this wasn't a gamble because their hand was forced here, but Papinga takes over a BYU defense. It's been in the top 20 of scoring defenses for 2 consecutive seasons. And this is a team that's won 23 games, in many ways based on the strength of the defense of these last 2 seasons. The BYU has won more games the last 2 years than any other Big 12 team by far at 23 games. Papinga inherits elite personnel. So we're about to see how much of a difference maker Jay Hill was. And then also, an underrated part of this is not just Hill, but corners coach and their passing game coordinator, Guilford. So the fact that you've got Poppinga, who has a lot to prove as a defensive coordinator and specializing more from a front seven with a defense that used to have coaches that specialized at the back end of the defense and even lost the most prevalent voice at the back end of their defense, a year in which they're coming off, James, a really successful season at safety and corner. That, to me, is where the pressure ratchets up for Kelly Poppinga. The front seven is Poppinga's calling card. The question is whether the secondary, now without its two primary architects, holds up without the direct coordinator attention that it had been getting previously under Hill and Guilford. All right, what does success actually look like for
getting back to the Big 12 championship game? I mean, I think that's kind of the bar for BYU. You get there last year, you lose 2 games to Texas Tech, 1 in the regular season, with a dinged-up L.J. Martin, who, as we just noted, only had 10 carries in that game off of the Iowa State shoulder injury the week prior. So success to me is you've got to get back to Arlington. Anything less with this schedule that doesn't have Texas Tech on it, to me, is a disappointment. So success, wins and losses don't matter as much to me as a Big 12 championship appearance, because to get there, you have to have a really quality resume, record, and you're going to be in the college football playoff conversation. And I think the talent from Tech and BYU should put both teams in. So for me, it's success is directly tied to if this team is, in fact, on the road to Arlington.
Yeah, I think success looks like a Big 12 championship for this team. And maybe I should go a little bit deeper than that and say a college football playoff appearance. I mean, you've got Bear and L.J. Martin back. Basically, the entire defense is back. Again, maybe it's a Big 12 championship or maybe it's a college football playoff appearance. One of the two. But you've got to go further than you've been the last 2 years. And you've won 23 games. Nobody in the Big 12 has won more games than you. You've done basically everything you can possibly do aside from win a Big 12 championship and get to the college football playoff. So I think, like, just getting to the Big 12 championship probably isn't enough this year considering they did that last year. They've been in the mix the last 2 years. It's time to break through. And by the way, not winning the Big 12 but still getting to the CFP probably means you beat Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Why will they win the Big 12?
Well, number one, they have a favorable schedule. This is the first time that BYU has 7 home games since they've joined the conference. And then the second thing I highlight is just the growth from Bear Bachmeier. BYU is BYU in Arizona, to me, has the most solid footing at quarterback with Noah Fafita, the first-team All-Big 12 QB for Arizona, and Bear Bachmeier, who enters year 2 after having already led a program to 12 wins, a conference title game, and a bowl win. And he had his best game in the bowl game, which tells me he's ready for the next step. Full offseason, full grasp of the system and playbook. I love the tight ends. We didn't mention that. The tight ends that they've added in the portal, and Walker Lyons and the kid from Oregon. So the core of this team is super experienced. They're proven. They've been there. Like, they know what it takes. For me, it's a lot easier to pinpoint why they will get to Arlington versus why they won't, because I have so much belief in what they have collectively.
Yeah, well said. Look, I think the Cougars have more returning production than anyone else in the league. An all-timer in BYU history at tailback, a dangerous quarterback who's just scratched the surface of his potential. There's a lot of arguments for why they will win the Big 12. BYU ranks among the national leaders in returning production with potential All-Americans at running back, safety, and linebacker. We've now made our way to the end of this series, and it's very obvious the Big 12 is experiencing extraordinary turnover. 22 of the 28 position players on the 2025 All-Big 12 first team are no longer in the league. BYU's continuity is a huge advantage in a league that doesn't have a ton of continuity. Among the top Big 12 contenders, only BYU, Houston, and Arizona bring back both their head coach and starting quarterback. Think about that. Only BYU, Houston, and Arizona at the top of the Big 12 contenders list bring back their quarterback and head coach. That's it. BYU was also the only one of those three that also has a top 40 recruiting class incoming. So, and finally, Bear freaking Bachmeier. I cannot stress this enough. He wasn't on campus last spring. He played a full season, had the full offseason spring. He could be the most improved player in the Big 12 which is a scary thought. So my number one reason and my last reason for why the BYU will win the Big 12, because of Bear Bachmeier.
Yeah.
Why they won't win the Big 12.
The loss of Jay Hill, the defensive coordinator to Michigan, and taking Gennaro Guilford with him, his passing game coordinator on the defensive side of the football, that's more than just a footnote. That could be potentially a structural hit to the defense that Jay Hill really was the architect of. I mean, it was hands off from everybody else. And then the other thing I would highlight is the receiver room. You know, the receiver room is my biggest question mark. It's untested at this level at every single position. If that doesn't translate to what BYU thinks they have, if injuries play a role with Casper and Phillips, and that's been really their identity throughout the course of their career so far, that could be a problem for Bear Bachmeier. I think everything else, like I don't see any drop off in terms of the offensive line. The tight end room is better. Defensively, in terms of personnel, they're better. They have an elite secondary. So that's probably my number one way that they don't get to Arlington. But, like, man, looking at their schedule, and great point earlier on the Notre Dame game, doesn't count against your conference record. I have a really tough time seeing them not being there.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, look, is BYU's ceiling still Texas Tech? Against Texas Tech last year, BYU's offense stalled, and they were not really able to do much. They looked really good against basically every team on their schedule except for Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And going back, like, they've seemed to have lost some of the biggest games on their schedule. This is not a knock on Kalani Sitake. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country, and I'm not saying they've lost some of these big games because of Sitake. I'm just simply saying, like, jury's still out because they've lost some of those big games for whatever reason. I think the receiver room is very thin. The defense has some major question marks here because of the lack of continuity with their coaching staff. Early betting lines is BYU as a 10.5-point underdog against Notre Dame and a 3-point road dogs against Utah. So there's definitely some arguments to be made against BYU winning the Big 12 this year.
And their schedule does have some tricky spots. Like, we all focus on the Notre Dame game at Utah, Arizona State. Arizona at home on Saturday, September 12th, that's right out of the gate. Week 2, they'll have a tune-up game against Utah Tech, but then you're in it. Also, at Colorado State is a little bit like there's a lot of potential trap games on this schedule for the Cougs.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Our Road to Arlington series continues. BYU with we're talking next with Spencer Litton from BYU Television about BYU. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio.
Seems to be doing okay right now. As Bear Bachmeier's pass is complete for a first down to Carson Ryan. Had big chunk yard runs here tonight, though. 2 in the 40s, 1 in the 50s. Now for the end zone. Ryan! Oh, he has it. What a catch. Touchdown. On Instagram, 1.3 million followers. It's a phenomenal museum with books from the last 600 years.
Well, the book on this offense is that it has a lot of potential. Ryan making the catch for the first down.
Take Retzloff from the program. Bachmeier became the starter. Bear will throw another open man. Carson Ryan strolling in for the touchdown. Ryan's second of the season.
First down catch by tight end Carson Ryan. He sort of moved on, but that was intense. Josh Eagle on the sideline with his star wideout. Bachmeier across the middle to the tight end.
Big 12 Radio. The voice you just heard there was one of Spencer Linton, our good friend from BYU Television, who's joining us now on our road to Arlington, BYU. With James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo. How are you, Spence?
Great. Ari and James, always good to be with you guys. And quite a day to be joining you guys based on what's going on at Lubbock.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we will ask you your opinion on the matter. But let's start with BYU, is what we've been talking about today on the road to Arlington. Bigger question for you, the defense in terms of the turnover at the top or the wide receiver position and who's going to be catching footballs for BYU this year?
For me, after having spoken with the new defensive coordinator, Kelly Papinga, and seeing the pieces that did stick around for BYU on the defensive side of the ball, it's probably the wide receivers. And it's not so much that I don't think they're capable. It's just that their numbers are largely unproven.
Yeah.
And there are so many new faces. And with Bear Bachmeier, we assume taking a step forward, that should help accommodate some of the concerns, or I guess alleviate is the word I'm looking for, some of the concerns that are in that wide receiver group. But that's the biggest question mark, is because there's no clear standout receiver. Where you lose like guys like Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, and you're trying to replace Carson Ryan at tight end. You're doing so with a couple of capable guys, transfer from Oregon, a transfer from USC, and Walker Lyons and Roger Saliapanga, but they too had very modest numbers. So the pass catchers in general, for me, because they just haven't been granted that massive opportunity like they'll have this year, therein lies the biggest question mark for me.
Spencer, what are the expectations for Bear Bachmeier? On paper, he had insane numbers last year, but I think the narrative was that BYU was almost, I wouldn't say hiding him, but managing him as a freshman. Now that he's got a year in the system, knows the playbook inside and out, how do you think things look different for that offense and him in specifically?
Well, in speaking with Aaron Roderick recently, and he laid it out to the public in a way, the numbers that he's set as goals for Bear that they've worked on together are Heisman-esque. I mean, he wants 70-plus completion percentage, 30 touchdown passes, minimal turnovers. Like, if Bear Bachmeier hits the goals that he and his offensive coordinator have set, then it's going to be a remarkable year. But for me, if he can basically maintain what he did last year, I think BYU is going to be in a great position again. And by maintain, I mean, let's float around 3,000 pass yards. If he rushes for around 600 yards and then can somehow approximate 25 to 30 touchdowns between throwing and running, like those would be, in my mind, maintenance numbers. The one area that he does need to get better in is taking care of the ball, and it should help that he may not be playing Texas Tech twice this year, because the Red Raiders are not on the regular season schedule. If BYU saw them in the Big 12 championship game, obviously he's going to have to face that defense at least once, but I'm hard-pressed to believe that defense is going to be as elite. And it was just otherworldly elite last year in Lubbock. And Bear will get better. He'll be more mature. So the turnover number is probably where I feel like he can take the biggest step forward, and that is Aaron Roderick's love language as the offensive coordinator. Can you take care of the ball and move your team down the field consistently to score points? I know that's every offensive coordinator in the entire country, it feels like, but that is Aaron Roderick's number one love language. Take care of the football. That's where Bear Bachmeier can and I think will be better this year.
We're talking with Spencer Linton. I, for some reason, have Spencer Pratt on my mind, so I was about to call you Spencer Pratt.
The governor.
Which would have been hilarious. Spencer Linton, BYU Television, does a fantastic job. Good friend of the program. Curious, Spence, for your thoughts on expectations for this season in terms of, like, BYU has pretty much done everything you could possibly do the last two seasons. They've won more games than any other Big 12 team. They played in the Big 12 championship. Like, do they have to win it this year? Give us your sense here of expectations.
Yeah, that's a tricky question because the margin of error is so thin.
Right.
In a 16-team conference that is as competitive as the Big 12 and has as much parity as the Big 12 does. And because it is a 16-team conference, some teams naturally are going to be granted an easier, perceivably easier, path to a Big 12 championship game. And I've looked at a few metrics. Every publication is different, but from what I can tell, BYU typically has somewhere in the ballpark of the fifth toughest to the 8th toughest schedule in the conference, whereas a team like Texas Tech is down around 15 or 16, and they have a perceivably easier road to the conference championship game. So there's some real tough mitigating factors. And like, if you have a tougher schedule, naturally your expectations should be bumped down a few notches, in my opinion. So with BYU facing a tougher schedule than the Red Raiders and some of the other teams that have a chance to get to Arlington, I kind of feel like I have to be modest in my own expectations. So that's why I put BYU's over-under at 9.5 wins. And 9.5 is not like it's a bad thing. Like,
right.
If they went 9-3, would that be a terrible season based on the schedule that they face? It also has Notre Dame and a huge non-conference matchup. No, 9-3 would be great. I just don't think it's good enough to get BYU to Arlington. They probably have to go at worst 10-2, and probably have to be 8-1 in conference again. I'm not there just yet because of the question marks we talked about with the pass catchers and some other things that have to be worked out with a new defensive coordinator kind of sliding into that role and figuring out some pieces. And then injuries, you can never predict those. Sometimes the ball takes a weird bounce in a game, in a close game late, and BYU's been so good in late game scenarios over the 2 years and in compiling the 23 total wins. But I kind of center on 9.5. So I expect 9-3. If it's a great season, they go 10-2 again, and they're competing to get back to Arlington. But I do think that BYU is probably going to have to be 8-1 in conference to feel comfortable about getting back to that Big 12 championship game, and that's a lot to ask. So, I mean, if you're saying like pick a number, just pick a number. I'm probably saying BYU 7-2 in conference, and they're kind of on that bubble area, depending on tiebreakers, about whether or not they can get back to another Big 12 title game.
Well, keep in mind, Spencer, all BYU does is exceed preseason expectations. So that could be a good thing, starting with a 9-3 season as a baseline. Curious, one of the things that we go over is the pressure point for each school. Who carries the pressure? Is it the coach, a coordinator, maybe an individual player? We don't see a ton of like pressure on BYU, but if you had to highlight somebody, who would it be?
Yeah, and I was pondering on something similar yesterday about where that pressure point is for BYU, and if how it hinges and how it could potentially impact the entirety of the season. And for me, it's probably going to fall on Bear Bachmeier, just because the quarterback room is not as deep as BYU fans would like it to be. I mean, he is the guy. And after that, you've got Ryder Lyons, who's the next incoming star for BYU, but he's serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and is involved heavily in his missionary activity, so he's not available. Like, what else is in that room behind Bear? And Bear is a guy that just naturally wants that pressure. He takes it. He tries to embrace it, but he is certainly feeling it. He knows what he means to this team, and he knows what happens if he doesn't perform well and things don't go well. I mean, you look at the 2 games against Texas Tech. He wore those heavily on his shoulders and took a significant amount of responsibility for what happened in those games, even though he was injured and not feeling great, especially in the Big 12 championship. He got hurt very early in that game and tried to tough it out and muscle through it, and it just wasn't working. And that's very frustrating, especially as a young quarterback. But he took those losses really hard. And that's kind of the role that he has assumed. He understands what it means to be the BYU quarterback, and that things largely lie on his legs and his right arm and his ability to now navigate opposing defenses and to help his team win football games. So I think he's the player that is predominantly feeling the most pressure. If you wanted me to pick a coach, naturally it falls to the new defensive coordinator, Kelly Papinga, who's taking over for the great Jay Hill, who departed for Michigan with Kyle Whittingham. So they say, the defense in general, that things won't change a ton, but I know Kelly, and he's wily, and he is a Bronco Mendenhall disciple, and there will be some weird new exotic looks with packages that he ran with Bronco at Virginia, and as a player at BYU, he's feeling some pressure too, but he's a guy that says he embraces it. And so if there's someone on the staff that's the pressure point, it's probably Kelly Papinga, and then certainly Bear Bachmeier as a player at quarterback.
All right, well, let's get your thoughts here, Spence, on Brendan Sorsby. The injunction was granted as the team that lost twice to BYU, to Texas Tech last year. Give us your kind of opinion on this situation here with Sorsby.
The whole thing is fascinating, and I think a microcosm of, and you almost called me Spencer Pratt, so forgive me for going a tad political here. I may consider running for Provo mayor at some point. We'll see. No, I actually would never do that. I would never put myself and my family through that.
You would win, though. For sure you would.
Oh, gosh. But it feels like in our society with politics and just how people view pressure points in our society, that we have almost taken holding someone accountable and moved into the category of unjust punishment. Like if you hold somebody accountable, you're not empathetic. You're not being kind. You're just, it's just cruel punishment. And I think that is just a huge flaw. This is nothing personal against Brendan Sorsby. It really isn't. I think I had a brief interaction with him last year after the Cincinnati game. Polite, nice kid, great athlete. But at some point, we have to be accountable for our decisions. And just because he, according to the nation, should not be allowed to play football, that's not, that punishment, that consequence is not the society being unempathetic or being way too harsh and cruel. That's just part of life. I feel like a person like him, he'll get better if he has to endure that hard lesson and that consequence. But what's being said is, hey, look, it doesn't matter. Like, you can mess up. You did what you did. But what we really care about is that you play football and that we win football games. Like, what kind of precedent is this setting? It's just such a slippery, dangerous slope for others to look at and say, remember the Texas Tech kid, that Sorsby? Look what he did. Look what he got away with. Like, slap on the wrist, he can go keep playing. It's all good. There'll be an injunction. You can just, or you can cite mental health or whatever. Like, you can find a workaround this loophole, and that's very, very unsettling. So again, want to clarify, this is not a personal attack on Brendan Sorsby at all. It's not. This is a way bigger conversation about, okay, people need to be held accountable for their decisions. And maybe the NCAA or the conference came back and said, look, if you adhere to a stringent set of policies, you sit out a year, but like you show good behavior and you truly are making yourself better in that way, you can come back and we'll reconsider your application in 2027. That's kind of where I would go, and that would be a merciful route. But people have to be held accountable for their decisions. And clearly the nation is, as college football fans, collectively are super triggered, and it should not shock anybody that the response is going this way. Guys, I don't know how Texas Tech can see this backlash and what's happening with schools threatening to never schedule it, the Red Raiders in any sport, and like what's happened already. I don't know how they can logically put him on the field and expect things to get any better. So, I mean, we're not even close to having this story done with, but I'm fascinated to see how this all unfolds, I should say.
No, and Spencer, all that's really well said. Thank you. BYU doesn't have Texas Tech on their schedule. How would you feel about if Texas Tech was on the schedule? Are you supportive of because BYU's like the one team that they could benefit from playing Texas Tech if they were on their schedule because they're trying to get in the college football playoff. Do you buy that teams might actually forfeit some games or whatever that looks like?
You know, I think that there are a couple of athletic directors, and I talked to Brian Santiago, the athletic director at BYU yesterday, and he just mentioned, as we were recording a separate interview that had nothing to do with football, that he said, man, the athletic director's chat is like 1,000 degrees right now. It's crazy. And he's like, I can't tell you what they're saying, but just trust me, it is hot. And there are some people that are really, really upset, understandably. As far as BYU goes, like, listen, if there's a school in the conference that wants to understand that people make mistakes and can get better, and you know they want to adhere to religious-based principles, it's Brigham Young University. And like I know that Brian and the athletic department, they're trying to be very careful about how they go through this situation and observe Texas Tech and maintain relationships. But to me, it feels like BYU would play the game, and if it's on Texas Tech, like that's their prerogative. They want to play him. I personally think that BYU would still play that hypothetical game against Brendan Sorsby and the Red Raiders. Now, that doesn't mean that their fans will like it and that they wouldn't, like most fan bases in the Big 12, really go after Brendan Sorsby for what happened, and Texas Tech. But I think they'd play the game, and yes, it would benefit, but I don't know if that's enough to sway the public opinion.
Sure.
That, well, it's good for football because they're a good team and it makes the conference stronger. Like they're the strongest entity in the conference right now. I don't think anybody cares about that in this moment. Like I don't think most people care outside of Lubbock that Texas Tech and their product on the football field would be significantly impacted. Right now, I think most people are about what is the right thing. Let's do the right thing. And the right thing in the court of the public opinion is that Brendan Sorsby should not be playing college football and that there should be a consequence. And he can try and get better, and then we'll reassess maybe in a year. But for BYU specifically, like they're going to let people govern their own bodies. They'll have an opinion. If ultimately the conference comes back and says, okay, we're letting Texas Tech do their own thing and they want to play Sorsby, then I think BYU would say, okay, we'll side with the conference. We don't necessarily like it, but we'll side with the conference. This is me projecting or me speculating a little bit. That's how I feel like BYU would approach a situation like that.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Spencer Litton, BYU Television. Always a pleasure to be joined by you, Spence. Appreciate your time as always, man. Thank you.
You guys are the best. Appreciate you. Keep up the good work.
You too, bud. Thank you so much. Always fun to visit with Spencer Litton, giving us his insights into the Road to Arlington BYU. Road to Arlington hits Texas Tech tomorrow as we conclude our series, the deep dive breakdown of every single Big 12 team. With James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Dampier, second down, loads of time. He'll pass the ball. He'll wing it near side. Intercepted by Wall. Slant, McAllister, tip ball, interception, BYU. And going back the other way. The cut inside, now back to the outside. The shove, touchdown. King completes it. Little receiver screen. Good blockers out in front of Rutherford and tripped up. Much to his angst. Speed option. Pitch to Hubbard. BYU closing quickly. As Tanner Wall, the safety. Off the play action. Pass complete to C.J. Williams. It's been a long time between drinks and waters for 2nd and 5. Dickey ball left tackle just tripped up as he was trying to get
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. We've got a team in the College World Series. West Virginia punches their ticket. Texas Tech falls to Texas in the softball national championship, and Jerry Glasgow is all class. What is the Big 12 to do, James? Along with James Wesley, I'm Ari Tepkin. It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Thanks for joining us today and every day here in your home for the Big 12. Tune in Big 12 Studios. A reminder, if you've not yet already, to check us out on Big 12 Studios. Go to big12studios.com to see all the platforms in which you can stream us and watch us. You can also, of course, download the TuneIn app if you have not yet already and search Big 12. There you can listen to us each and every day from 7 to 10 a.m. Central, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. And today at 1 o'clock Central, it's the Tuesday Power Hour. The Big 12 Power Hour featuring Drew Mestemaker, an interview with him, Noah Fafita, and Bear Bachmeier. We're talking with 3 of the top quarterbacks of the Big 12. Plus, you can catch at 2 o'clock, Big 12 Power Hour Part 2 with Caleb Hawkins, Bill Self, Gabe Lazo, and Tommy Lloyd. So the new UCF women's basketball coach, the Arizona and Kansas basketball coaches, and Caleb Hawkins, who's in line to become one of the feature Big 12 backs coming from North Texas. And then the Road to Arlington BYU. If you missed any of our Road to Arlington BYU series, you can catch the full BYU Road to Arlington at 3 o'clock Central today right here on TuneIn.
I just can't get past that you called Spencer Linton Spencer Pratt multiple times throughout the show.
I only said I was close to saying Spencer Pratt is with us here.
That is the ultimate throwback.
Is
it?
it?
Hills. Oh, yeah. He's a reality TV legend, and now he's running for mayor in L.A.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently it's got legs. He's got a chance.
Yeah, I think he was up against the incumbent in the primary, which usually never happens, right? Incumbents traditionally win in primaries.
Right.
What should the Big 12 do here? It's a simple question with a very simple answer.
Simple is the first word that comes to mind for me.
Simplicity.
You know, 2 games feels too little. An entire season with a chance to come back might be the path.
Did the Big Ten suspend Michigan or do anything to Michigan when they were caught, stealing signs?
Did the Big Ten do anything to Michigan?
Correct.
I actually don't remember. Did they?
What's worse? Gambling on games 4 years ago that your team was playing in? I know he continued to gamble, but he didn't continue. I think the thing that most people are hung up on is that he gambled on Indiana.
Right.
What's worse? Stealing signs from other teams en route to a national championship or gambling 4 years ago on your own team?
Man, that's very subjective. I think they're both really bad. I don't know which one's worse. I mean, for the integrity of the sport, they're both 10 out of 10 bad, which is what makes this so unique. And there are still questions that I have that I'd like to see answers to. I'd like to know, when is the last time Brendan Sorsby placed a bet on a game? What was that bet? We know that he transferred tens of thousands of dollars, up to $60,000 to friends' accounts for him to bet on games while he was living in the state of Texas, where sports betting on the apps is prohibited and illegal. And then the other thing I want to know is, did he actually bet on any games, prop bets, anything that could not, like the Indiana stuff, he wasn't playing, right? But was he betting on teammates to hit a certain number? Like, there's still a lot more to unpack throughout this, what is now an FBI investigation into what Brendan Sorsby was actually up to. But I don't know that, like, have we seen a court of public opinion stance as strong as this?
No.
In our lifetime?
No. Nothing like this. And again, like, I would argue the Michigan thing is worse. I would argue the Michigan thing is way worse. But anybody that hears that might think I'm making a false equivalence. And I would venture a guess to say, if the shoe was on the other foot, the reaction would be completely different. If Sorsby was highly sought after by LSU or Indiana, ends up there and this happens, what do they do? It's just an interesting exercise to go through.
What year So Michigan got caught. They were stealing signs the year that they won the national championship.
Yeah.
The penalties, which included over $30 million in fines, revenue sharing deductions, scholarships, those are the big three. They had a 25% reduction in official visits and a 14-week communication ban. And then the former staffers, Connor Stallions, like he received essentially, not quite, but close to a lifetime ban, right? 10 years. So the penalties were harsh, and you could say that it did have a direct impact on Michigan in terms of their football program, because what have they done post-national championship? They haven't sniffed the college football playoff. They're lucky to win 7 or 8 games the last few years. They've had a coaching scandal, and now they're on their third coach since that happened. So if those are the penalties that the court of public opinion are looking for Texas Tech, it could have a tremendous impact on their program.
It'll be very interesting to see again what the Big 12 decides to do here. Brett Yormark has released a statement. The statement is extremely general and basically leaves the whole thing open here. So the Big 12 can act in whatever way it wants, and he won't be contradicting himself based on these comments. What will the Big 12 do?
And there are paths, there are bylaws in the Big 12 conference contract, and I don't have it in front of me, but essentially, long story short, the Big 12 has the power to essentially make a decision collectively on the future of Brendan Sorsby, on Texas Tech. The scheduling thing, like, we all know everybody's bluffing. Just like Texas was bluffing when they made those comments about the week schedule, and Texas Tech said, okay, let's suit it up. Let's do this. Let's settle this on the field week 1. Like, I don't see Big 12 teams actually forfeiting games and not playing Texas Tech.
No. Look, ultimately, I love the leadership here from Yormark, and that is, all right, we probably have 16 different opinions on this.
And let's get everybody in a room. Let's get everybody on a call, and let's go from there. That's step 1. And not everybody's going to disagree in that first phase. And I think it was Trey Wallace who noted, I mean, he's not eligible to play now until week 3, which is over 3 months from now. This isn't going anywhere. There's a lot that can be decided in the next 3 months. I'm not ready to say he's going to serve his 2-game suspension and play the rest of the year. I'm not sure that that's ultimately what's going to happen in this whole thing because of the court of public opinion, and not just the court of public opinion being fans, but the court of public opinion being athletic directors, coaches, college football commissioners, some high-level players in the sport.
Do you think that Texas Tech should say he can't play?
Not yet.
What would cause you to change your opinion on that? What would be the impetus for you to say that that's what they should do?
Well, I want the questions that I have to be answered. I want to see if Texas Tech is willing to negotiate maybe a longer suspension. But also, like, Texas Tech being just absolutely crucified for this, Texas Tech didn't necessarily do anything wrong. Like, they immediately deemed him ineligible when the gambling news came to light. They were 100% compliant and provided the NCAA with all of the requested information. They helped Brendan Sorsby find an addiction treatment. They publicly supported their student athlete, but they found a loophole in the system in that the NCAA can't win any of these major high-profile cases, and they took advantage of it. Did they do anything wrong? I would argue no.
Well, in this case, you have Sorsby essentially acting not necessarily on behalf of Texas Tech, and now the hand is being forced by Tech, and people want them to rule him ineligible and have him not play. I mean, look, I ultimately think the Big 12 will do nothing. I think the Big 12 probably should do nothing. I think Texas Tech should do nothing. I think ultimately Texas Tech will do nothing. I think he'll play. I think he'll be suspended for 2 games. He'll play. And I'm not sure how well he's going to play because, yeah, I mean, there have been major questions about him as a player before this. And this only ratchets up the pressure that he's going to be facing because of all of the eyeballs that are on him. Again, I'm not sure that he had any conceivable idea of the media firestorm that this is going to bring to the table.
I didn't. I don't think he did. I don't think Texas Tech did. I certainly didn't. I don't think the Big 12 did. Like, this is just gone bananas. And Texas Tech is a program that I don't really think Texas Tech cares what anybody else thinks.
No.
They do what they want in the portal. They're in a financial position that is still barely cracking the top 10 nationally, but because it's Texas Tech, they're the villain for doing it. That hasn't deterred them in any way, shape, or form. They're also just a fiery, feisty fan base that, if anything, this is going to fuel them to beat teams by 30, 40, 50 points when he's on the field and try to propel him to a Heisman-type season.
It's Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn, watched on Big 12 Studios. A big thank you to the folks at Rally House for providing some of our gear and items for the set here at Big 12 Studios. Thanks to Anthony Smith, our producer with Big 12 Studios. Thanks to David Turner, T-Chains. Thanks to James Wesley. I'm Ari Tepke. Plenty more to come on the Sorsby Saga on tomorrow's show, plus the Road to Arlington, Texas Tech tomorrow as well. It's all on a Wednesday edition of the show. But for now, we're out. Peace.